I always go live while we're talking.
I like to hang out with people who tend to elevate my mood. Like you guys, you're excited about stuff. You're driven. You want to do stuff. And I think that has a really positive effect. Even if I'm a bit down, just by being around people with that level of energy, it does affect me positively.
Brings you up. So, I mean, why would you, like, if everybody treated Christmas like a funeral, why the F would you go? Right? Like
nobody would go. It would be the worst holiday.
Yeah. And I have friends who have those family groups where they get together and you're like, dude, it doesn't seem like this is, their family doesn't get along like mine. And I'm like, it's all right, man. They've been like, hey, do you want to come to Christmas? And I'm like, nah, I've seen your family. We're good. I can steer clear of that. I don't need your family around. What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG. We're at podcast 421. Sorry, because 420 was where we were going to be, but we did the Xbox event, right?
Okay. Yes.
There we go. Yeah, and that's what started Johnny and I talking, is because we don't smoke pot. So the 420.
I think the title is wrong because the title says 141.
Does it? It does. Let me change it. Look at that. I can change it in real time. Watch this. Boom. 421. Oh yeah, I copied it wrong. There we go. Boom. Fixed. So we're gonna be covering. We are gonna deep dive into Alan Wake and the reviews, but we're not gonna do any spoilers. I'll have the video, but not the audio of my review up. But there's no spoilers in that either. We were kept very minimal when it comes to Remedy and what they wanted us to show, which is definitely the best, I think, when it comes to reviews like a game like this. Johnny's going to talk about Spiderman, Lords of the Fallen, he finished. Let's see, what else? Celebrating Friday, having a good time. I got a bunch of questions, but we just wanted to sort of go into this Friday with a good attitude, have a good time. This might be a slightly shorter podcast. We'll just have to see, because it is just Johnny and I today. So let's begin. We have any what have you been playing other than, well, not other than, just total? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so this week I finished Lords of the Fallen. I'm doing another playthrough to get a different ending on the side.
Ooh.
But it's been a lot of fun. The game is really cool. It's really a lot of fun for people who like those games. I highly recommend it. It's got some quirks, but the bosses are great designs. The environments are exciting to explore. So big recommendation. And I just wanted to bring up, they hit 1 million sales, which for them is pretty good.
Yep.
In like 10 days or something. And they also made some awesome corrections to New Game Plus. So for those of you who were worried, originally the way it worked is when you got to New Game Plus, you didn't have bonfires anymore.
Right.
Or whatever the name for them is, right? But now you do, and you have the option of doing a New Game Plus 0, which is the same difficulty, but you keep all your stuff that you got. So if you wanted to just go through and do another ending, but not really have like a scaling difficulty, you can do that. And, that for me is a really cool addition to it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these companies are making those quick changes. Have you noticed that? It's like they changed they messed up the flag in Spider-Man. They're like, whoop. Prior to Spider-Man going live, they had a mess up in one of the suits. I think they had another mess up in one of the suits. There's a lot of suit stuff when you have art and different suit ideas in Spider-Man. I could see somebody making a mistake, slightly, doing the design wrong. But the companies are releasing patches pretty quick, which is awesome. It's like almost right away. Not right away, but within 2 or 3 days, you get that first patch and fixing things.
It's been very reactive.
Things. Yeah, it's been nice to see that. That's one of the things I was talking about with you prior, is that, like, it is now redundant to say 2023 has a lot of good games. And a lot of good support for some of these games. It's not even an impactor to say it anymore. So it's like,
what a year. Right. And we got another great game. Alan Wake just came out.
Yep.
We've been excited for a while, and it's out. It's a solid game by all accounts.
And I also can tell you this. In 2 or 3 years, you're going to start see YouTubers doing videos. Could even be more quickly, where they're like, let me explain to you why 2023 wasn't as good as you remember it. Like you get the KOTOR wasn't as good as you remember it. It's like, nah, bitch, at the time it was good. Like, that's the way we do things. 2023 2023 has been fantastic, man. It's been fantastic in all ways. Channel's done well. By the way, thanks for super chats. Thanks for subscribing. It helps the channel in all ways when you guys tweet it out that we're doing the podcast or that you sit and watch us as well. Channel's done well. Game's doing well. Dude, it's been...
So you hit 1 million this year, right? It was this year?
Dude, we hit we're at like 1,100,000 something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And all because... Not all... I mean, I will take a tiny bit of credit that I do the videos, but a lot of it is because one of my friends was just like, dude, I got like 6 changes, and I'm hats off to him. Like, the channel was doing fine. It was doing actually very well, but but
you thought those changes
were
the
sense.
Difference maker? Like they actually pushed you
to the
next
realistic
level?
How much of a difference maker they were. Like, and there were small changes, but he was like, hey, I've been looking at things, and I think, yeah, it was ridiculous. It was awesome. But let's get into games. We'll hold off Alan Wake to the next subject. By the
way, before you move on, because you were saying 2023, right? It was an amazing year. I was bringing this up with you before we started shooting here. Like, how many games I've finished this year is, I think, a really good indicator of how sticky, how good quality the games were.
Right.
Because, you look at Baldur's Gate, 100 hours, right? Starfield, I don't know if it was 60 hours or something, and I'm still coming back to it, right? And a lot of these games with a lot of hours, Lords of the Fallen, 50, 60 hours.
Yep.
It's kind of a lot of these. And it's really remarkable for 1 year to have this many bangers. Hogwarts in the beginning of the year, another 60 hours, right? And I really can't go on. Like Lies of P, I spent, for me, it was a great surprise. And so many of these games really hitting home.
I think also when people hear us say sticky, they don't know what to think. They're like, what, physically? But
you're happy to see me, or
sticky games can be bad too. But what we're talking about is that a lot of these games have enough quality that there's a desire to return to them. Yet the desire to return to it is magnified as you're playing it. Like, you're continually playing it and you're continually going, this is awesome. And then when you're playing something new, you're remembering the awesome times from the other game, which admittedly, if the games weren't as good and they were good, there would be a couple that I wouldn't return to. But this year has been stupid. It's like legitimately dumb, where I went back to Tears of the Kingdom recently because I thought we might talk about it at the end of the year. So I was like, let's jump back into that. Within 5 minutes of playing, I was like, dude, this is like a legitimate masterpiece. Like, what is going on? Yeah, it's awesome. And that stickiness is just that they're good and they're big.
They're good.
And I think many are returnable too without a big problem. I think Lies of P, I would have a problem because of the parry. That you might get your butt kicked a little bit. You might get a little smoked. But Hogwarts is, you can dive back into Hogwarts and in 15 minutes go. Yeah.
I mean, dude, I can tell you, I definitely felt the burnout a little bit because I did Lies of P, two playthroughs of that game.
Right.
And then back to back, I then started Lords of the Fallen, which is another, Souls kind of like butt clenchy type game. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, I had a great time. I might do a chill new game plus 0 or whatever in it for a different ending. But I'm gonna take a break for a second here from the soul stuff.
In chat, what's the stickiest game for you guys this year? Has there been a game you've returned to? Super chat, Chris McComb, $5 super chat. What gaming handle would you recommend going for PC gaming? Don't mind spending money up to around $800. He says, what gaming handle would you recommend getting for PC gaming? What gaming handle?
Handle? What are we talking?
Peripheral? What are we talking about there, Chris? Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that.
Help us out.
Are you spending $800 to get like a ham radio handle? Like, I don't.
Yeah, 800. Damn, dude.
I want that perfect title. Buckskin Rubber is the name I'm using, and I want it on Xbox and everything. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by gaming. What gaming handle? He maybe just means what card. Maybe, I don't know. If it's what card,
give us a bit more context. Yeah,
NVIDIA right now is probably your card. I mean, I don't have any hatred towards AMD, but right now with DLSS frame gen, all that kind of stuff, it's pretty tough.
It is, but I gotta tell you, man, it's such a bummer. The frame gen only works for
30
series 40.
Yeah.
And you know.
Oh, handheld. Handheld. He meant what gaming handheld would you recommend? I would definitely recommend to look at some of the reviews for the Legion, for sure. I think the Asus ROG has had so many issues that I just as a precautionary tale.
All I keep hearing is issues, man, about that
like
one.
everybody I know, even the people who loved it, I start talking to them and I'm like, do you still play it? Nah, not as much. They're like, some of them are even treating it like kid gloves, like almost like a car you love that's got an oil leak. So
the Legion is also, that's the Lenovo one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also Windows, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all going to be your Windows, your Windows. You know what's interesting too about the Lenovo and all that kind of stuff. Anybody in chat, if you've got a mobile, feel free to say what one you're doing, handheld. I see a lot of complaints about Windows 11, and I got to admit, I don't know if it's because I do editing and all that stuff, but dude, I hit one button, the keyboard comes up, I drag some windows, and I launch my game. I don't know what they're trying to do, but I can personally say it's
so for you, the normal workflow works.
Not only that, Johnny,
like
it's better because it's not Android, which has its own apps, and many of them don't do what I want. Like, it's not as easy to record on a handheld that's Android. You have to download an app, and then sometimes there's not a shortcut.
You're familiar with the layouts.
Yeah.
It's like it's the native system.
Yeah. So it's just, and everything works on it. So I can grab an executable from my PC and throw it onto the, because 1X Player Pro, 1X Player 2 is one of the ones I'm using. But yeah, I would say check the reviews for the link.
It's interesting you say that because I thought one of the benefits of the Steam Deck was that it had this more, not closed system, but more purpose-built OS that's kind of like for this, and it does the one thing, and you kind of run into less hurdles or less random OS issues.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I've had a bunch, Chinese knockoffs. I've had a couple of those. I've had Switch, and then the Switch hacked, Android ones, Windows ones, and one thing I do want is some native power. And I get that you can run a game on the Steam Deck, but the difference between running it and actually wanting to play it on the Steam Deck are way different for me than a lot of people. Like, when I've seen people say it runs great on a Steam Deck, I'll be like, can you send me a screenshot? And they send it. I'm like, dude, of course it does. That's like the lowest of low set. So I do want a little bit more power. I think the Steam Deck's really ancient.
And a bigger size. Size does matter.
Yeah, size matters a little bit, yeah. But and the Lenovo has the touchpad thing that everybody liked from the Steam Deck. So that's a good plus. And it is ultra powerful. So that's good. But there's a handheld for everybody right now, which is great. Brandon, $5 super chat. Would you rather blur one random intrusive thought daily or never share an opinion again? So I think he means random intrusive, like almost questionable, almost.
Or like terrible? Like,
well, yeah, like go
canceled?
to Twitter and drop something. Yeah, like get canceled. Like, let me tell you about this. And you're just like, people. I would rather do one random intrusive one that maybe got me in trouble.
Yeah, I'll take the. I mean, at the end of the day, we already share more than one random intrusive thought every podcast, at least,
every podcast, dude. It's just like I'm not gonna worry about that shit. Like, what I mean, I've seen people get canceled for stuff that is absolutely mind-numbingly low, and then others get in trouble for things that I'm like, okay, that makes sense, and then others not get in trouble. And I was actually talking to Absy about it after the podcast on Wednesday, and I was like, dude, some of the stuff I'm reading from people, how are they not like just comparatively? How is this person getting away with brutality on what they say? Like, completely questionable. It's just like, right?
Do you ever get
social media
intrusive thoughts? Because I think when people say that, they mean like a thought they really don't want to have, like something that would say something bad about their character, or like, because I'm trying to think. I don't really know if, I mean,
darker than the darkest dark thoughts. Yeah, it'll pop up, and there's German word. It's not the Schadenfreude or whatever. There's another word for the random, like, I'm going to push this person in front of, like in front of a car.
Kind of like when you play The Sims and you like remove the ladder from the pool to see what happens.
Well, I mean, that's just fun. That's just fun in games.
That's entry level for you.
Yeah,
that's like,
dude, that's starting out.
Baby level.
That's good guy character. But no, I mean, I think we all do. I think everybody in chat, you probably had a moment where your brain And that's probably the difference between somebody who snaps and does something, somebody who gets in a fight with it, and somebody else whose brain is like, that was a weird thought. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been talking to like a friend, and my brain will go, and I'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and then,
sometimes it's not really a position you hold. It just kind of came to you. And
Yep. It's almost like your mind palace, to use an Alan Wake 2 kind of thing, joins two things together, and you're like, I don't think so.
You get a short circuit up there. So.
That's not the right plot point. People here are talking about Legion. Some people like Steam Deck. Some people like Legion. That's the way it is. Remnant 2 has been a blast. This is Doom Reaper. Remnant 2, easily one of the better games this year. If you haven't ped Remnant 2, I'm telling you right now, they fixed...
That's another banger. We didn't mention it,
dude,
but there's ridiculous. Another one.
Yeah, and it was good day one, but it's like it's only got better. And there were hidden, what are they called back in that game? Archetypes, I think. Is that what the classes are called? People
were still figuring out, like, oh, how many classes are there?
Yeah, and secrets to get them and stuff. James says, I have also always thought intrusive thoughts were, I'm going to drive into ongoing traffic. Yeah. But I mean, the way, on the other hand, an intrusive thought like that, I would have one every day, so it doesn't bother me at all. That's why I'm thinking he meant like tweet it out or something. But go ahead.
Yeah, I guess. I was wondering, this type of thing where the devs create something kind of obscure, where it takes the community a while to piece together how to do something, how to unlock something, or how many classes are there, hidden things. Does that excite you when you see that type of thing? Or do you prefer to kind of have it just like cards on the table? Here's what the game has to offer.
I was going to say only in a game I care about, obviously, but that's a good point.
True.
I like mystery, man. We'll talk about that with Alan Wake. To not, I'll just talk about atmosphere.
Lords of the Fallen. I know I keep bringing it up. Sorry, but they have a cool thing where some weapons have a hidden potential, and the game doesn't tell you exactly how to unleash it. So it might be that this boss's weapon, if you wear their armor set fully, you unlock its full potential, and now it has a new move. This type of thing. And this hasn't been figured out, so people don't actually know what weapons have this and how to unlock it. So it is kind of like the community is trying to figure it out. I kind of like that. When people pull together, like
I think it's awesome when they have that. Yeah. If you guys go to iTunes and Spotify and review the channel and tweet this out, we'll have a special unlock in the podcast. I don't know what it'll be, but I'll give you a special unlock of some kind. We should have special unlocks. I should be more proactive in figuring this stuff out, but it's so funny because every time I go into the podcast, we're all so yacky that I don't want to like try to schedule, or I don't know what the term would be, but try to put
an
things
intermission.
Down.
Like
because it's like it would ruin the vibe of just a bunch of people randomly laughing about games and saying stupid stuff. And so I admit other people probably do it better. I'll try to figure it out. So we do have some podcast questions. I'm going to hit one or two of those before we go to Alan Wake. And again, no spoilers. We'll just discuss the reviews in general, and then I'll discuss a couple issues I had with no spoilers, and then we'll move on to everything else. Chicken Fusion said, is there a recent game that's critically panned? We got this last week as well, so if it's the same answer, I apologize, but he says, is it a game that's critically panned you would like to see a sequel? And he said, Order 1886. That is also, or was one of my answers, and I do believe that's a good solid answer. I think the Order 1886 had some really good lore. So I would like to see a sequel to that. Anything that you saw get critically panned that you'd like to see? Did you do
I don't
We
look
Happy
back
Few?
that much. A little bit, yeah.
Because I would like to, We Happy Few hit clumsily.
You liked it?
I
would like something like Outer Worlds. No, Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds.
The one... Yeah, the one that
one.
people keep the indie one, people keep telling me I have to jump into it, and I did for quite a few hours, but it never grabbed me. I think it was something about the visual presentation.
Me too.
I would like to see that done in maybe a more kind of high realism, or maybe like something more interesting visually. That would grab me, I think.
You know what's interesting, dude? I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure all 4 of us had an issue with that game. I am almost sure
I remember
Abzi and Abzi definitely had. I don't know what it is.
And Reg.
Yeah, and Reg. Yeah, we were all sitting there because I do believe a lot of times that maybe a game doesn't hit me, but when it doesn't hit all of us, that's usually when I sit back and go, well, wait a minute. Reg plays like furry point-and-click games, right? You like your Dark Souls style games. Abzi likes his shooters. I have to and like a lot of them. Silver likes the eclectic. And
true.
Most of us bounced off that one. So it's like...
There's something there.
There's something there. It might just be the reason why you guys are all on here. We would find one thing that's about us instead of about the game, maybe. Who knows? Alpha Protocol, Citizen Sleep says. Alpha Protocol, legit answer. Like, ridiculous. Aliens Dark Descent was one of my favorites this year. Prozac says, listen, I didn't love it, but I thought there was a lot of cool shit. Like, the open world kind of thing in a Aliens game was not what I expected. That was fun. But it did have some issues. So let's talk about Alan Wake. Alan Wake, I would say, I mean, the majority are above 80, or above what we would
pretty
call
high
that.
Scores.
B, above 3.5 stars, right? Whatever the other rating scores are. Dude, so here's my personal thought, and I've already talked to a couple of people, and this is sort of reflected, and I am not saying this means anything. I did say last night in the Discord, my worry was that the reaction to the game will be measurably less than the reviewers. And there's a bunch of reasons why. One is that early access to a game causes you to get excited, right? Like it does, like you get, it's finally 13 years. We're getting Alan Wake. I got to tell you, Johnny, like I was playing it going, man, I like it. I had some issues, which we'll talk about in a second, but I go and I look at reviews and my heart sunk a little bit because I know that can lead to like some serious crunch after a game comes to the fans when people are like, it's the best game ever. There's no imperfections. So I like John, I talk to, occasionally on Twitter. I see him on Digital Foundry and he's like, this is the best looking game ever. And I didn't respond to him because I didn't want to shit on his thread. But I was like, listen, the animations, sorry. Those are straight up Alan Wake's original animations. Like, they are rough. And I would have loved to have seen them improved. There's issues with paciness. There's issues with the atmosphere itself. And I hope everybody playing it is loving it. But I saw those reviews, Johnny, and I was like, oh, no. Because, I mean, there was a lot of people going like, this might be the best game of all time. It may change the world. We're already on Mars because of Alan Wake 2. And I'm like, guys, just...
So is it like setting people's expectations just a little bit too high?
Yeah, and when you say, I don't mind the 10 because we already know that. But it's like that the article titles and stuff, like it runs perfectly, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't run perfectly, but it runs very well, but it does require serious grunt.
It's a heavy
right?
game for sure.
And if you want to do ray tracing, it requires even more serious grunt. And
Good luck.
I just wish there was I get that, and people are going to get mad at me and be like, well, they're fans too. We are all fans, but your job is to sort of
and I really believe you can love something, but still be critical about some points, right? And
this is I'm not saying, Johnny, either that people should poke something for no reason. I'm saying that when it's like that, the best thing of all time, blah, 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 it's like maybe you should have given yourself one day. Because I talked to Abzi 2 days prior to the review going live, and I was like, well, I can't tell you what I think of it, but I can tell you that I'm waiting a full day before I record
letting
anything.
It settle.
Yeah, so I could sit there and
down.
go, what was my, how to sort of piece it together. So it scored awesome. Hats off to him because Alan Wake is probably maybe my favorite IP, I think. The fucking just awesome IP, man. The Alan Wake, all the control, the AWE experience through Quantum Break. They do some great callbacks. I'm not going to say anything more on that.
Dude, I know Abzi talked in the past about the big, bold letters or impact font or whatever.
Impact font. Yeah.
I love this stuff, man. Like, because this is not a spoiler. The game kicks off in this way. It's just like, bam, Alan Wake 2, the full screen. And I'm like, let's go, man. They know how to present stuff.
Yeah, in 13 years, these guys, like, I'm sure
they did it in Control, too.
They did it in Control. They know how to deliver some. By the way, that's why I said I personally believe that Alan Wake feels Western, like a BioWare game does. There's JRPGs, there's Western, and I know for a little while that was unacceptable to say, but now it seems like people are like, no, actually, that makes perfect sense. Like,
yeah, it is a and it is a difference in the style. It is a difference.
And dude, when it pops up, it's that a little bit Stephen King, a little bit John Carpenter, a little B-movie, but it's very Western. Everything about it is not like The Ring. At all. It's not, even though they took some Resident Evil gameplay devices, it's just completely Western in the way it's delivered. And I personally, I guess, I find that a little bit easier to digest overall from the story.
Yeah.
What about you? How many hours have you played?
So I only have a couple hours because when I was playing it, I decided I wanted to play it on stream, like the full thing. So I stopped playing at about 2. So I just got a taster for it, and I've seen the reviews and stuff. So I would say I'm pretty early on, but I love the addition of the mind place thing.
Yeah.
And it was ballsy because, the start button takes you there directly. So
it's a major
I don't know how
part
to explain this exactly.
Yeah, and don't
it's a major part.
But it's CSI Miami Crime Board.
Yeah, right, exactly. So if people think back to Heavy Rain, right, where the guy had his thing with VR, I guess it's similar to that type of thing. But yeah, so normally when you press the menu button, takes you into a menu. Well, you can go to the mind place very quickly. That was one thing that stunned me, like how quickly you can transition in and out of the mind place. And I thought that was important because if it was a slog, if it was a slow process to go in and out, that would kind of kill it for me because I would feel like, I have to again go in there.
You just hit on something I should have covered that in the review. I didn't. It is unlike a Ubisoft UI. You hit that button and it goes. You hit on something I did not cover in the review. I should have had you help me with the review because
it's a small thing, but it's a small point. Like
but it's
over
noticeable.
time, it grates on you if there's a delay there.
Yep. Each second that you go, like each second you waste going in and out, at the end, you're like, well, that's 1 minute, 60
It's grinding
times.
away at your will to play.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good point, Johnny. I felt it, but I should have mentioned that because it is noticeably snap. Yeah, it's noticeably, and so the ability to go in and look for a second and then pop out is easier. The one thing I didn't like is that when you go in, you're standing there a lot of times. And I was like, I sort of wish I'd start wherever I left, but I can see why they're like, well, if a person wants to do a dossier and doesn't want to do the crime board, we don't want to start them at the crime board because so we'll just start them in the middle.
You still have to reset.
Yeah, you still have to reset. So it looks like people here are playing, enjoying it. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's a moment of reflection where, you look at the character and it looks incredible, the realism of the model and everything there. And it's very cool because you look at what you picked up, at the pictures and you go, oh, okay, this is relating to the victim, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it very much guides you, right? It's not like you're left to your own devices to figure out stuff, but it does feel like you're piecing stuff together to me.
Yeah, I like your idea. It's funny. I'm still sitting on your snappiness because Alan Wake's got some number 2 has some pace issues. And
with the storytelling or the gameplay?
The storytelling. Combined because it's like, hey, here, blah, 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 here's something happening. Okay, let's walk around for 25 minutes. And you're like, and this happened with Spiderman, by the way. So if anybody says I'm just dinging Alan Wake, I ain't, because I talked about the exact same thing in Spiderman where they're like, hey, look how cool you aren't. And you're like, it's like swing, done, walk around and, go to school and ride bikes. And you're like, what are you doing? What do you do? Put that, once we've solidified everything, put that a little bit later. Alan Wake 2 has that. And the snappiness helps it, though. Because, so let's say what you said wasn't there, and it was like a Ubisoft UI, where it was that soft load in, all that kind of stuff, I could see it being doubly annoying. So to me, it was just it was like, but
because if you collect one thing, let's say you just looked at one piece of evidence, you're not really going to go into that slow menu just to place it on the board. Right. But because it's snappy, you actually can. You can say, oh, let me go to my mind real quick, instantly, right? Place it there alongside my other evidence, see where it sits, and then I'm out. I'm back in the world again. Very cool.
I won't do this. Feel free. Somebody, including yourself, should write a little article like, why does the Mind Palace in this game work versus others? And I think you could say
it's funny because it's a small thing, right? But it adds up.
It is a small thing, but it's almost digital in how fast it works, and so that ability to pop in and out feels like you're just hitting a button. You're not seeing all this stuff. So with Alan Wake, man, awesome reviews. I didn't really read. I read about 3, and then I sort of got mad because some of the not mad, but I was like frustrated with what I was reading. I was like, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna sit off and watch what people are saying when they play. And it seems to be that everybody's primed for a heavier game, which I think is awesome. You mentioned one thing that sucks is that the 40s have the AI frame gen and the tensor cores that help that, and the 30s don't, and you have a 3090. So with your 3090 though, and DLSS and FSR, you're playable for you're totally acceptable frame rates that way. Correct?
So I'm running medium presets, no RTX, FSR, 4K, but FSR quality, which I think it's half the resolution or something.
No, FSR is just one down. It's
it's
1/4
that's just
down.
It.
It'll be 1440p.
Post, yeah. So that's my setup, and I'm getting a pretty stable 60 so far.
Awesome.
But I did need to compromise, like I mentioned there, on the RTX. RTX was unplayable, was like 18 FPS. So, it's rough. But again, it is what we talked about it last week. I'm all for games pushing the envelope, get that envelope and just slide it all the way across the table.
They were pretty open about it. People gave them some shit, including myself. I was like, they're talking about the RTX. We're not seeing a lot of non-RTX, but they were really, in a way, priming everybody to be prepared that RTX is going to, ray tracing is going to be the...
Yeah, it's going to kick your ass.
It's going to kick the crap out of pretty much anything because that's the way they're going. And I will say, I talked about this in the review, I like games that they want to do whatever they want to do. Tears of the Kingdom, that open world, the islands was phenomenal. Every game's delivered it different. And this game is like, let's put a shit ton of effects in. And when you're in the forest, turned off, no ray tracing. If you're in the forest and you have your effects on, though, the normal effects, man.
Yeah, it looks incredible.
That game is sweet looking. So somebody just asked a question. They read a review that said it's a little bit like Twin Peaks and Ace Attorney. Does that work? A little bit. Yeah, Twin Peaks is... Alan Wake has absolutely got some...
It's always been a bit
Twin Peaks. Got a couple Twin Peaks references in it.
Direct references.
You may not pick up on it because I don't know if you've watched it, but...
I did, yeah.
Okay,
yeah. The first one had like a... Did it?
Yeah, the first one had one or two, and this one definitely has one within a very short amount of time. So
I hope it's related to coffee, because that was my favorite meme from Twin Peaks. It's like
cherry
some
pie
damn
and
good coffee or something.
Damn good coffee. Yeah. With Alan Wake, I would say all the reviews, the stuff I saw, the stuff people are talking about, I think the only real issue I have is that when I finished it, it is missing, the open world of the original that was then sliced because of development problems, sliced into levels. You could still see the open world environments because the engine was the same, and this one is levels. And there's a lot of teleporting in this game, I guess you'd call it. Like, moving to this level to this level. And it's so bad that even one of the characters is like, where the hell am I? And I was like, yeah, I got you. Like, I don't know if they were actually, if that's a in-joke, because in the story, you sort of know that they wouldn't know. But I'm wondering if even they were like, listen, it doesn't feel the same. And I would say that's the one thing I walked away from, was that a bit of the magic, a bit of the mystery has been replaced with that gritty CSI, the Resident Evil, has sort of creeped in there, and it's sort of taken a little bit of what I enjoyed from Alan Wake 1 away.
Yeah, you did talk about this in your review, how the game world was really connected in the first game.
Yeah.
Whether that was a byproduct of,
it was
how
just
they designed it originally or something, but it ended up being very, very connected to the point where, you would see signs to what is, the peak or whatever, and you would end up going there, and you would have this sense of, okay, I'm here, this is there, you kind of place yourself in that game world.
Yeah, it was such a great feeling, man. I think also, you got the voice actors that we all expect. Some, we won't talk about most of them because there's some surprises in there. I think that obviously some people are going to put it as their game of the year. If you have 10 games of the year, which we seem to this year, it's going to be a heady conversation. I absolutely see some people putting that, even if they have some issues beyond mine, they have tech issues or whatever. I can certainly see this being in the convo. Just a lot of games in the convo this year. A lot of games.
On the technical thing, I did want to say that while I'm happy for games to be pushing the envelope, I also want to see the optimizations come in, right? So maybe not day one, but I do hope they're coming out with patches and stuff to help kind of... Well, I don't know. What's your take? Do you feel like what you're seeing and the performance you're getting makes sense? Or does it feel like it's a bit under-optimized?
It makes sense for their engine and what we've seen in their other games. Like Control had some issues. Remember the base PS4 on Control, and you were like, woo.
Oh, yeah.
Admittedly, I am saying the base PS4, it was not the most powerful system, but you could tell there was some stuff going on. Yeah, I mean, for what it's showing, if you turn ray tracing off, it still has the world and the shadows, and it's awesome looking. And incredible. I'm telling a lot of people, if you're having frame rate issues, dude, just turn don't get caught into the ray tracing with path tracing with, Uber flexical train. It's just like, who gives a shit, man? Game looks really good without it. Feel free to just turn it off and give yourself 15 minutes with it off, and I guarantee you'll probably be able to play it and still think it looks phenomenal. It's heavy, but it's not City Skylines 14 FPS with a 4090, It's like that. I mean, there's trash games right now that are just with terrible performance. This is not that. It's pushing it forward. It's pushing the tech forward. That's for sure. I have seen some issues that people had. I don't know if you've had any. I didn't have this, but there was some audio skipping or glitching a lot of people have had, where it unsyncs the audio from the talking. Has that occurred?
No.
For you?
No, not for me.
Did you have any glitches that have caused you to reload?
No, not so far. I had some awkwardness with movement and kind of getting stuck in corners sometimes.
I did too.
And the animations kind of being a bit weird.
Yeah.
But overall, pretty good.
Dude, awesome, man. Anybody have any questions about Alan Wake before we move on?
I do have one quick question for you.
Oh yeah.
Because I need to know. Am I gonna have to shake my flashlight or continuously recharge it?
No, not batteries? In that way. No, they've changed some stuff. The mechanics I consider the mechanics better.
Okay.
For that kind of stuff. You still burn the battery by shattering people's, shadow self shield kind of stuff. I will say enemy design later on is fantastic. That's all I'll say. I think that it starts out pretty basic. Good. It's like, here's some shadow guys that you've seen before. You're like, shadow dude, all right, I know what to do with him. Later on, there's some really cool stuff. So I'll just say that. I think that, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, we might talk about a couple of them. But we'll talk about this in a bit. I was actually quite upset about the some of the articles that came out the moment the game went live and spoiled a bunch of shit. And this was websites, not YouTube thumbnails. We know that problem exists. This is websites, and I'll talk about it in a second. But I would like to not spoil most of it, so I'm trying to talk really generally around it. But
vaguely.
I just think that the mechanics, some of them are better than the original, and some are directly, just like the animation for Alan. Alan, dude, bad back and everything. Alan needs to stretch his hammies. Like I said in the review, like that dude has got like a lower back issue.
He's just
and so
tight
did Saga. They're like, and that's why I said in the review, you have a double button to flip around, but if I try to turn 45 degrees, they get shin splints and they suddenly go at 1 mile an hour. It's like, so you're telling me this person can flip on a dime, but they can't just slightly twist at any speed, greater than sloth.
That's funny.
It's just weird. Aries says, how scary is it? So let's discuss that. Are there jump scares? Number one, a ton. There are. There are jump scares audibly. There's jump scares with FMV overlays. There's jump scares in that way. So if you're a jump scare person, there is some horror in those, but there's also just a lot of audio stingers that are like, hey, and even I was here by myself and I was like, geez, what are you doing? Like, it was out of the blue kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say it's a jump scare heavy game for a good section of it. And then horror wise, people are asking how scary it is. I'm pretty low on the scary. I think it's less scary than the first one, but still not very scary. Would you say, like...
I thought the first one was pretty low on the scary...
Right. It's not about that, right? It's more about, like, mystery.
It's the mystery, and,
Know,
intrigue.
X-Files.
So it's along those lines? Because they did say, like, it's a survival horror focus.
Yeah, but that's like gun upgrades and stuff, which I got to admit, there was a couple things in the game where I'm just flatly was like, this does not need to be here. Is
because you thought it was just like didn't build into the other.
Dude, there's a couple
stuff,
things where when you get done, you're just like, what? Why? Like, why is this even in here? Why is this a thing in this game? It just slows you down. Luckily, like you said, it's snappy. So anything you do go into is pretty instant, but... And
I thought they designed the UX really well. I don't know about you, but so far I've been pretty happy.
Just like... Yeah, it's easy to quick slot.
The interactions and, going from one place to another and how stuff looks pretty clean presented to you in a way you can parse.
Can I ask you something, though, dude? When you were playing number one... Did you play the DLC?
No.
For number one? Okay.
No.
So let's say you played Alan Wake. Did you ever wake up and go, God damn, you know what Alan Wake is missing? Dialogue trees. Why are they in Alan Wake 2? Like, I know why they're in because reasons, but dude, you're just sitting there going, what in the fuck is there a dialogue tree here for? It just doesn't, it doesn't allow for it to smoothly give you the data like the original did with overarching discussion and
I agree with that
diegetic
because it was much more kind of guided the way you received information, wasn't it?
And this
kind of like
scripted. You walk up at first, you're talking to someone, you're like, why am I hitting A? Why is this guy not just, for example,
just give me the data, right?
Well, if you saw a random person in the woods, I don't think you'd need to say hello, they'd probably see you coming and go, hey, who are you? Which is what the original did. This one, they're just like... And then you walk up to them and hit A to sort of activate a couple of them, not all of them. But we have a super chat. Oh, go ahead. No, go for it.
I guess was the point that maybe you can skip some lines or something if you're not interested?
No, there's a reason. I just don't think that it had to have been done. That's just me. In fact... We'll talk about this I'll put a note. We'll talk about it in 4 weeks. We'll wait. And we'll even talk about it around it then. We'll let it percolate. But I would argue if they had delivered in the same way as Alan Wake, it would be better because of some of the stuff. Yeah. Brandon, $5 super chat. Which celeb would you like to see as a Far Cry villain? I'd like to see Nick Cage riding an alligator, dual-wielding SMGs set in a walled-off Florida. That is a detailed thought experiment.
Very specific, yeah.
Nick Cage is pretty awesome as a bad guy. He would be pretty cool as a bad guy. That's like a good over... I think him or Steven Seagal sitting in a chair.
Dude,
and he wouldn't get out of the chair.
I can't believe you... I was thinking of Steven Seagal.
Were you?
I can't believe you also brought it up.
Yeah, dude, as a bad guy in Far Cry, never gets up from his chair.
The thought of him as a bad guy.
Just karate chopping people. That would be awesome if he never got up and that was the joke. Like
he just kicked her ass from the chair, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt says, ACG's review was surprisingly backhanded. I've been playing Alan Wake for about 10 hours, and it's my game of the year. For me, it's just a sheer singularity, the whole thing. It's totally unique.
Awesome.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, it's first comment I got was after somebody played about 10 hours, and they were like, man, you were way too easy on this game. So there you go. What's interesting is backhanded usually means like giving a kudo but not, and I'm like, nah, I gave a lot of kudos. It's just that I am gonna hit on the things that actually occur. My job isn't to make you feel better about your life, just tell you the way the game was. And I think especially when you look at this and when we look at all these games this year, despite problems with even the premier games, because all of them have had little issues, they're awesome anyway. And I think that that's one nice thing is that for the most part, people have come to the realization that some things are weird, but that's fine. Like when I reviewed this game, I was like, some things are missing, but it's fine. Like, yeah, whatever. It's its own. It's 13 years later. Things are going to change.
And I think that's why the fun factor part in your review is so important, and it's missing in a lot of other reviewers because they just
talking about fun factor.
Yeah, because they will talk about what's good and bad, but there isn't the context of what was it like as a whole to experience that. And then in the fun factor, people get the context of how noticeable those issues you mentioned were right?
Later on. Yeah, but a lot of people, I'm sure, skip around and then they're like, why did he rate her?
TLDR, skip to the end.
Yeah, too long, didn't watch, but I'm going to spend 60 on it. I'm like, seriously, dude, if you're spending 60, you need to watch everything. Andy Hart, $5 super chat. Would you recommend quality at 30? I heard Remedy prefer this for Alan Wake 2. Also, 12 gigabyte upgrade. Has that started any issues? What's your 3090 have? You have more than 12 on yours, right? You have more. You have 24 on yours.
It's 24.
Yeah. All right. You would probably need to look into that specifically, but I would say 30 quality. This game does not require any lickety-split timing, nor is Alan Wake or Saga capable of split-second timing. They are a grandpa and a grandma running around with a gun. So do not worry. If you want 60, which I think is awesome, that's why I played it. Great. But 30 isn't going to have your enjoyment.
I turned down some settings so I could get to 60 because the fluidity of it made a noticeable difference for me, more than the slight extra bling. But that's my personal preference.
No, I mean, I think also foliage at 30 versus foliage at 60 can sometimes look rough. When you see, like, when you're running through a forest and it's at 30, depending on your motion blur settings.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not stopping to look at the leaves. Like, I walk slowly and I like to take in the scenery, but I'm not like,
peering at a leaf.
Let me stop here and...
As a reviewer, I will certainly point it out if I see like super low textures in multiple places. One or two, I might just be like, dude, there's some really weird texture. Like this is it, especially if it's out in the open. If it's around a corner, no. I have steadfastly refused. Like if some texture on a rock around a corner that you have to peek around, like what the hell? But I look at them. I will just say that the audio work in Alan Wake 2 might be the best this year.
Damn, and we've had some good ones.
Dude, the audio work in that, like, I might have cut it from the review, I don't remember, but one of the things I was thinking to myself, and I know I recorded it, but I said something along the lines of, when Saga's in the forest and it's raining, it would not surprise me to get damp. Like, it is that good. Like, the sound, and if you've ever been in the forest, there's always the hush of air moving, so you get this, like, and then you add the rain, and dude, there's this one time in one of the places you come in and you hear the rain and it's above you, and then there's some voices, and there's a little bit of a Hellblade or two kind of moment because it's Alan Wake, and I was just stunned. I was like, oh. And the music, we can't talk about the music just because it's, I mean, people know what it is, but it's like, I don't want to mention it. There's a lot of vocal tracks, not just from Who You Expect, that I was, between chapters, I was like, dude, that is...
One thing we don't talk a lot about is like sound design from the perspective of the little sound effects of things, like when you interact or you click or you get something.
Yeah, like
And
UX sound effects sometimes.
Yeah, UX sound effects, and I thought Starfield had, for me, like the best this year, because
Clicking.
the bebops of things, clicking, going into, man, that felt awesome. When you level up and all these little things, I absolutely appreciate.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah, I mean, and that's another game. There's just so many games that have had good audio this year, but the audio. Yeah. And one thing Alan Wake 2 did that I was surprised is that there's moments where they just let the music die. And normally that negative space I notice because it's gone, but they never started it. So when you get into the game, it's not a lot of music. And it was smart. Instead of having like this synth wave, off camber kind of shit, discordant stuff, and then going away, instead, when you're walking around, it's just your footsteps in water. And hearing it like hit a metal roof somewhere, and Spiderman did this as well with some, and you're just like, oh my god, I feel like I'm out in the forest, and that's
this is what we talked about audio dynamics, meaning the difference between the quiets and the highs,
high and low,
being significant. That really can be a way of kind of storytelling too, because you're imbuing of emotion, power, of lack thereof, or tension and right, like holding your breath type thing when everything quiets down.
Like if you're playing Halo and you go into space in the Halo games and they mute the audio, or The Expanse, the TV show, and you hear the guns normally, and then they go outside, or not outside, they go into space and they're walking on the ship, and it's like and you're like, dude, that's, in fact, in Expanse they touch each other's helmet to talk because it transfers vibration through the helmet as audio, which is a cool little ad from the writer, which is how you would speak. Like by touching somebody and talking, the vibration would actually allow for you to understand what they're saying better. And I thought that was awesome. $5 super chat, $2 super chat. Zachary, he says, Alan needs Ben Gay for his shins. He does, man. Alan's rough. I don't know. I would like to see him a little quicker. I think it sells a horror, I guess. But ACG, this is Daximus, says, question from a longtime fan of your work. Why do reviewers normally do reviews primarily on PC or PS5 and not Xbox Series? I believe it is this, because I was asked what version I was given the option for most games. I get the option. But I talked about this in the Discord because we have these vocal chats in the Discord a lot of time. We had this big voice chat, and one of the things I was saying was that the PS5 is a different platform than the PC, but the PC and Xbox are closer in platform-esque kind of style. And so what I think is that people want to see that totally different platform. I think there's a worry or whatever that, it must be because there's an issue with those, and there have been issues with PlayStation 5, Fallen Lords. There's been an issue with Xbox and multiple games, in PlayStation 5. But I think the easiest way to do it if you're going to review is pick the different platform. And then, admittedly, there are also people who try to pick a platform they don't think anybody else has covered. And so I've been emailed going, what platform are you covering? And I'll cover the other platform. So, especially people I like, they might ask, like, are you going PC? Because if you are, I'm going to go PS5. And then that way, like, we cover both things. I think that's great. I think that's actually a really good way of doing it. One thing I will say, though, and I saw this earlier, the myth of being rushed for reviews has to die, man. It needs to die a cold, hard, ludicrous death.
Okay, so say more about this. So reviewers being rushed?
Dude, it can happen. But all of these games we're talking about had more than enough time. Starfield was 2.5 weeks. It's ridiculous for how long. And by the way, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that this overarching, this is why. So when somebody says, this is why a review didn't cover this, no, it's because they didn't cover that. And I've missed stuff I just told you. I would have loved to have covered what you covered, which was the quickness. That's on me. And dude, I'm telling you, people will try to spread that rumor themselves because it makes them look better. Oh, it's the system. No, it's you. Just like it's me. It's me. I absolutely think I failed in that review in a couple places, and one of the places, quickness of the UX would have been a glory, and I would have probably broke off. It was a short review. I would have loved to have brought, I mean, I feel actual genuine, like, damn, because that's a missed opportunity.
Like I missed out.
Yeah, but did it have to do with the code timing? No, it had to do with me being an idiot and not real. That's a core facet, and I failed on it. It's nobody else. Zachary Park.
I think you're being too harsh on yourself.
No, I'm not.
But
because when you mentioned it, look how long we talked about it. Come on. It's okay. Like I can take a loss for the team. You mentioned something that I should have mentioned. Zachary
I'll let
Park,
you have that.
Yeah, let me have this prime moment. Zachary Park, $5 super chat. Do you guys think Alan Wake 2 is a lot like Callisto Protocol and that they both prioritize visual flair over gameplay? No. I think
it also you have to break down gameplay because you have different elements of gameplay. So, for example, the Mind Palace stuff we talked about is technically gameplay too. It's
it
is.
Yeah.
A broken down pace. But so, yeah, I think, I mean, it sounds like on the animation department and more of like the combat stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't put as much.
And look at Callisto Protocol. Their gameplay was showing you a bunch of fatalities that they chose then to sell to you later as DLC. That's Callisto Protocol and their bad choice. Let's not pretend that's anything else than what that is. Here, it is
I'm going to be blunt.
Game.
I don't think Callisto is nearly even in the same pantheon of game that Alan Wake 2 is. In any regard. You could talk about the animations. Sure, visually it looked great in parts.
Right.
But even there, I wouldn't really stack those two.
I absolutely agree. If you said Callisto Protocol, like on a last 200 games have been released, Callisto Protocol and Alan Wake would not be in the same triple-digit section. Like, they wouldn't even...
There's a lot of distance there. And it had some good stuff. Look, I still enjoyed some of it, but
it was over. That was the best part.
Yeah, it was over. That was the best part.
I'm just teasing. It wasn't that bad. Zachary Park, $5 super chat. He asked that, but he also says it feels a little bit like Alan Wake got a pass because of the hype. I think that you guys will be the judge. I feel like it might have a little bit, but not in the gameplay section. In the some of the tech stuff, some of the gameplay, but not in the same way Callisto. And Callisto got hammered. So, I mean, I don't think Callisto got it. Callisto attempted graphics and it got smashed for it. Alan Wake attempted graphics and it's not getting smashed for it. So what is the difference? Alan Wake is good. That's right. That's
Yeah, and I think the elements that aren't that good don't impact the enjoyment as much as Callisto, because the bad parts of Callisto impacted the game so much that, for me, it kind of ruined the whole experience.
Sleep says, playing a game with no timeline will always be different. You playing, sir. If you think otherwise, you're actually incorrect. So when you look at review timelines, if you are stating, I can just sit for 6 weeks, so therefore my experience is different, correct. You chose to sit for 6 weeks. So the difference is on you, not on me as a reviewer. If I have 2.5 weeks to review a game and I play for 1.5 weeks and you play for 1.5 weeks, me knowing that there's some timeline for me to put out data about it, the difference is I'm a reviewer, not in what I will say. And for example, we've talked about this on games I don't review. There's no change on a game I don't review in what I would say, and a game if I review it in what I would say. I don't have the time for it. I don't have the stomach to lie about it, and I don't care if you feel better about it. I don't my job is to not make your life better. My job is to just say this is the game. If a game, for example, was 5 or 6 days prior and it was Starfield, what happens? Go look, and you'll see a lot of people starting to do reviews in progress. I don't have an issue with that, as long as they cover it at the end, and they say it's a review in progress. What I don't like is when they say it's a review, and then you get to the end, and they're like, by the way, I haven't finished this. And you're like, shit, So what if the end sucks, which we've seen in games? What if last fourth sucks? But no, it's just not, man. It just doesn't happen as much as people think. And I do pick certain games that I schedule out. So I'm sure some people are grabbing a game that maybe they don't have time for. but that's also on them. Like that's them. It's Daximus. ACG, you're the only reviewer I trust. I'd love to see small mentions in your reviews if these AAA games offer photo modes. Okay. I mean, I can't say I'm going to for sure do that.
Have you been using photo modes?
Dude, Spider-Man's photo mode in the original game stunned
it's so
me.
good.
2 is good, but I didn't use it as much. If it's a good photo mode, not in the way... No. Not. I mean, I do, but I don't... Still pictures don't grab me as much. I love the comic book. You can put a frame in Starfield. I think that's great. But when I share stuff, you'll notice even when I drag it to Discord, a lot of times it's video. Because I haven't... Like, otherwise, I just let you guys do it. I just don't... I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I don't
weird,
use it as much.
but a few games do cause me to use it a lot.
Mm-hmm. What ones?
And funny, 2 of them have been from... sorry, I'm blanking on the studio name. So it's Spider-Man 2 and Ghost... Yeah, Insomnia. Spider-Man 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. I spent a lot of time taking stills and, you know, changing a filter on it. And I loved kind of reflecting a moment in the still, because then I would look back at that later and think back and say, oh, that was that cool duel I went into, or that was that cool suit I got. That was the, you know, the cat in the backpack or whatever.
Right.
So those are like little moments that are pretty cool. But funny enough, other games like Starfield, I don't really bother much with it. I'm more like, I'm just, you know, in the moment and then it's gone. I'm good with that. So I think it really depends on the game in a weird way.
Chat. Let's go with this. Chat, do you use photo mode? If you do, is there a reason why in particular games you do or don't, or do you use it all the time? I should also point out, Johnny, I don't take a lot of pictures in real life. I'm getting better at it because...
Not a picture guy?
Well, I wasn't, but now that I've got, like, dogs, I want to take a picture of the dog because, unfortunately, we've had some,
course.
you know... So,
yeah,
I've gotten better at it, but even when I was a young kid, I don't like pictures. I don't even like people taking pictures of other people. There's something... I don't like selfies. I find them, like, they sort of freeze time instead of... Like, I like motion, man. I'm a sucker for motion, even though here I am, my favorite artist is Bob Ross. So... I guess that's sort of a dichotomy there, but I love the idea of it. I thought Starfields was good. I think Spider-Man 1 is probably the best, you know, photo mode of all time. Like, it's just ridiculous. And putting those frames around it and doing those kind of things, it's just awesome. Marco says, ACG, agree, not a critique though, but fundamentally the enjoyment of a game can be impacted by how you consume it. Correct. That is, so I'm not saying that isn't. I'm stating that I consume games when I review identically to the way I consume them outside of a review. And I think that...
So you don't like... Sorry to cut you off. I was just wondering if you like take notes or, do something extra if you're reviewing.
Bro, I probably take equal notes or thoughts down or record my voice on both. So when I'm not reviewing and I'm playing a game, if I want to tell you guys about it in the podcast, I will do it. But also, I'll tell family members. I just like games. So I'm just talking about...
Like, phone up a family member, hey, dude.
Yeah, like, dude, what the... Okay, so, I mean, I've been open about this, but, like, my brother's had problems, and, he's contained right now, and so he calls me every Saturday, and he's like, hey, blah, 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 and I'm sitting there talking about games he hasn't seen in 4 years. I'm like, dude, this game is legit. This game is wicked. Like, I know you can't play games, but let me tell you about the awesome stuff I'm doing. It's sort of selfish, but to me, it's great. Like, I love that. And I get why you take pictures. I'm looking in here. A lot of people are saying photo mode, Horizon Zero Dawn. I took some pics in Horizon Zero Dawn. I also don't know about you guys in chat, and I don't know about you, but I think because sharing video is so easy now, that video took place of maybe what I would have taken pictures of, because I can drop a video into Discord and say, here, or even a GIF, here's 5 seconds of something.
Yeah.
So.
But there again, I think it depends on the game, because for Starfield, the video makes sense because the way the action plays out, you kind of need the video aspect. But when you look at Spider-Man and let's say you're mid-fight on an amazing kick and you freeze frame, put a cool filter on it, cool angle, maybe you add a frame or whatever. That to me is cool. That adds to it, like augments the moment.
So can I ask you then, if you had played Starfield third person, maybe it's a third person situation where you're seeing Spider-Man and there's not a gun blocking your view. You're seeing
But it's also
Spider-Man.
that the third person you're not doing much. Like the character isn't really moving much in,
Yeah.
Starfield.
And in Spider-Man, the dude doesn't not move, Yeah. Well, for example, that's a great example. Alan Wake, I would take videos of. I would never send a screenshot to somebody of Alan Wake, even though it's third person.
That.
But there's something about it that
I don't think a snapshot would say that much in a way.
Right. Yeah. Especially because we're talking about movement a lot of times when we're talking about Alan Wake's trees and stuff.
And it's a slow, sort of like slower game.
Yeah, you might have hit that one for sure. That it depends on the game. Looking in here, it looks like a lot of people are using Cyberpunks. That's cool. Joshua, $5 super chat. If a game is visually stunning, like Ghost of Tsushima, I absolutely would take tons of videos. Other games, like Bethesda games, I don't bother. I think.
Well, I would say Starfield, man, is a looker sometimes.
That's what I was going to say, but I do get what he's saying. Where one is trying to be a faux work of art visually, and the other, you might have moments of art with a star going, or a planet going by, Jupiter with its rings or whatever. So
I get that.
I get where he's coming from. Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, man, even the scuffed photos that some people post in the Discord about their ships and stuff, I get excited because I look at it and there is something about it. I think that looks awesome.
NASA Punk looks awesome. Marcos responding to something, says, I get it. I guess all I'm saying is that it's an inherent weakness of reviews, ACG being an exception because he says he doesn't change. You can agree to disagree with me as well, too. I'm just saying that there are a lot of differences, but I think overall, when we all look at it, there's a lot of conspiracies about reviews and games. Some of them true, some of them not. I've done myth breakers on YouTube Shorts where I've been like, like here's a myth that is just not true, and here's a myth that is sort of true, and it's all just my experience. It's almost like your experience. You like Lords of the Fallen more. I'm not gonna. There's no conspiracy. It's just you like Lords of the Fallen more. So it's But if you did a review, as long as you were static and I knew where you were coming from, and you said, I don't think you give it a 10. But if you said, here's Lords of the Fallen, and let's say your review score is 1 cat paw up or 1 cat paw down, like up or down, thumbs. If you gave it an up and I knew where you were coming from, I would have no issue. I would be like, okay. And I think overall that's sort of how you have to take everything. And here I am also complaining because I do think some people ignored Alan Wake. There you go. It's a soft. I'm putting my foot in the sand, but it's soft sand. Pencil says, what's interesting that you need to pause or stop the game during an action. As a player, I don't find myself pausing the game, especially during engaging gameplay. So he's talking about the photo mode. And while that is true, I think Johnny's liking the cool looks of like Spider-Man bent like Gumby doing a backflip, and so he's sort of trying to capture it where he does that, I would capture it in video.
Well, it's even more magic than that, Karak, because I can freeze frame at any point during a fight without it being deliberate, like I'm gonna freeze it here. No, I'm fighting and randomly I freeze. And like 2 times out of 5, I'll find like an amazing pose or, unexpected.
Can we all agree too that games look so good that a short GIF or a picture is awesome? We should agree with that. Like, regardless of what you do, the idea that you can pause and look at a planet in Starfield or Elite or No Man's Sky or Spider-Man or Alan Wake is insanity, man. That they look. I like the old games, but let's be honest, pixelated. Like I get the art aesthetic, but yeah, man, Ghost of Tsushima. There are times where you're like, what the? This game looks incredible, and they delivered it in such a good way. So more people talking about it. Johnny, you're being asked if your hat's for sale. Can somebody buy
Hats
the
are
Johnny
for
Plays?
sale.
Where,
Yes.
where do you do your hats?
Go to my Twitch channel. There's a link in the panels to the merch. And
Johnny Plays Live
helps
on
the
Twitch.
channel. Johnny Plays Live.
You're going to start streaming on YouTube? You're going to simulcast? Because now it's
I
okay?
have done it. For now, I'm only doing Twitch because it
Gotcha.
adds a layer of complexity and another point of failure that's kind of a bit too much for me to handle right now.
Johnny's just burned because I fail all the time, and I'm just doing one place, and I still can't get it right. So Johnny's like,
Dude,
damn, son.
I can't deal with like the random technical stuff that comes up, man. Just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah, no, I get you, man. Like, just trying to do this podcast, like the weirdest, Windows update, and we'll be sitting
between
here going,
the internet, Windows updates, and
it's so dumb because you'll see people in emergency situations working through every problem, and we'll be like, I don't understand what the bitrate problem is. It sounds dumb and like and basic, but it does happen. So yeah, I'm glad to, and dealing with two chats, Bitlerist says, I think that is another thing. Dealing with two is just more difficult. I think they've made some concessions to that, but I still think you're supposed to sort of separate them a little bit. And I think that's bothersome, separating chats. I think it's just, you want it all to be in one place.
Yeah, and you can show it on screen, as a consolidated, so everybody sees everybody on screen, but it's not really the same. They're not in the same chat room. And the fact is, there is a vibe. There is a different vibe on YouTube and on Twitch. Dude. It can be great on both, but I think you kind of have to find the one you gel with the most and stick with that and try to build there. And then sure, you can branch up, but I'm still a small channel, so I'm okay over there.
He's still small channel selling hats and shit. That's what selling another thing that's great is like
nobody business.
Yeah,
we're moving some hats tonight, Karak.
Yeah. Well, I was actually surprised when I put the shirts up and how many shirts sold, and I was like, damn, it sucks because they charge
but your
such
shirt
a premium.
Designs are.
Yeah, I got lucky with the shirt designs. They're pretty good. Did you see the new ones that we got for Rough Game that I posted?
No. Well,
if you look at the Discord and scroll up, it's based on us talking about rough, as in a dog barking, RUFF game. And so I was talking to a friend, and he was like, let me put together a design for like Rough Game shirts. And they're awesome, man. It's like a dog, like looking, like quizzically at something, and then it just says Rough Game. They're up above. I was actually like, I'm definitely going to get those printed out. It does suck that they charge so much for, wear of any kind these days. Whenever I go to get a sweatshirt, whenever I go to get pants, I'm like, damn, prices are expensive, even for unaltered stuff. So anything else for the Alan Wake-icus? Alan Wake 2.
I think that's about it. We kept it pretty vague, I think, which is good. Let people experience it, and then we can slowly dive into more detail next week and beyond as people get more into the game, because I do think a lot of it benefits from not knowing prior.
I mean,
even the small bits that I've seen.
Yeah, it's best to just sort of go into it with a little bit of data, but the rest of it. Oh, and somebody was asking, do you have to play Alan Wake 1 to play 2? Negative. But I will say they have I guess last time on Alan Wake, as normal, you can watch that. I will say that there's a difference between experiencing the game and watching any kind of Let's Play or any kind of summary video. And Alan Wake is a different style of game. So Resident Evils, a lot of times, maybe have a character overlapping, but they usually section off and go to a unique place, or they do something like that. With Alan Wake, it is a world, and it's now, all these games are the Remedy-verse. I would just say that there's times that on a game like this, you might want to actually play the game. That's just me. Next up, let's look at my notes here. We talked about Fallen Lords. It's doing well. It sold 1 million, you said. Let's talk about the Xbox reshuffle. So Sony lost some people, while Microsoft has merged and changed their entire organization now. And it does show, like, I was actually not impressed or anything, because I don't really care. The game is what I want to get. Like, I don't care too much about the org changes. But they're definitely gearing for something. And when you look at their financials, even though hardware's down and stuff like that, you can definitely tell Microsoft is gearing up. And somebody was listing their games now because of Activision already, what games they had, and then adding Activision. They're in a position that if they do it right and make good games, no more Redfalls. That's not Microsoft. That's Bethesda and those guys, Arcane. But yeah, it's awesome to see competition, man. It's awesome to see them do well because I want to see all of them have to fight for my $60. So it was interesting to see. Did you see some of the changes, the org changes? Sarah Bond is now
I didn't look at it.
Like in charge. Matt Booty's in charge. They're, it's Microsoft. They've got in charge and in charge in different sections. But it's good stuff because a lot of them also, hey, we bitch about companies. A lot of these guys have been there for a long time, which is good to see, if that makes sense, because sometimes when you see a lot of that turnover, we've talked about with BioWare or whatever, is this the same BioWare? Probably not, because those people left. But you can definitely see that they've kept a lot of their people. So I think that that's cool. Hopefully, they've learned from some of their mistakes, and they've made some. And I would like to see no more Redfalls. That would be my...
Yeah.
Would be my big one.
It's funny. We've had some low points in the year. But to be fair, it hasn't been that many...
No. You mean
really
not many
like
really
low
low
hits.
points? Right.
Yeah, low points. We had a couple with Gollum and Redfall. Those were kind of the big ones.
I always forget Gollum, man.
That was rough. Well, actually, we also had the King Kong game recently. Did you see that?
I did. And it is rough, but I do want to point out that I believe the developer has stated that it was one of those titles where they were just given a short time, publisher wanted it out, and they're like a company that without that work, they would have just, they were just hired to do this game, and this is the best in 11 months they could do, whether we all agree with that or not. It wasn't like a company that sat for 3 years deciding how to make a King Kong game, but it was bad. Ain't no way around that, man. That was rough. But It's also not even, it didn't even have any PR behind it. It's not like Redfall or Gollum, where, there was the PR glitz and glamour, and then you got it. Or Callisto Protocol. Callisto Protocol is a good example, though it was last year. Alan Wake 1 bundle with DLCs and Control on Steam is $18. That's not bad. I would say that that's a good price. You can get all those games and you can play them. Moving on from there, what else do we got on the docket for discussion? Xbox reshuffle, Ubisoft delayed, Skull and Bones again. I mean,
we don't need to kick a dog when it's down.
I mean, what do we even say about it? Like, it doesn't. It happened. Like, it's a thing. There's nothing to say about that getting delayed again. It's now to the point to where, if it comes out, I think that they won't deliver anything that's worthwhile.
Yeah, I can't speak about it because I did the preview, but it was under NDA. But
I think did the preview?
Yeah. I
see. Okay.
But the consensus has been that it's not a video game, basically.
The consensus
it's a technical demonstration of something they're trying to do.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Not a very good one.
Wow. Damn. Damn. So you're under NDA for that. I wasn't even aware. So certainly don't want to go too far on that.
Well, it was just a play test. To be fair, I don't know if the NDA has lifted at this point. It's been a long time.
Well, can I ask you a question? Does that indicate that it's really bad if you don't even know if the NDA is lifted?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That speaks for, that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
There's also some previews I know of that I got invited to, and I had some tech issues that are coming out. You guys are going to see for some games. I don't even want to say what because I don't know the NDA because it didn't work out. But there'll be some titles here that are coming out in the next couple months that are getting previews in the next couple days. I think that's awesome. We'll sort of see where they go. I think also we may be at a point, Johnny, I don't know, but I feel like that we are definitely at a point where people are running out of time and money. And I've noticed this with some of these games. It feels like there's this quick turnaround for some of these. A big game comes out, people are talking about it, and then Spiderman, people are like, boom, now it's Alan Wake. I think it might be time, or I think it's good that we don't have a bunch of big games in December and November. We've got a couple, but I think consumers might be at the consuming point where it's just like, dude, we're done. Like, I don't have any more money. And it's good, but it's also bad. You know, it's obvious that they might be selling into a smaller group. I think a lot of these companies probably should hold off some of their games. I mean, Skull and Bones should be held off forever, from what I hear, but not from Johnny, by the way.
Let it sink. Let it sink.
Yeah.
Not
right.
all boats should, be fully built.
Yeah. Sometimes you build a boat and you're like, oh, you know what? The hull's bad on this. This is a bad plane.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't get the frame right. Let's just ditch it and
let's just move on. Yeah. So I got a question in Discord. This is from Michael, who I read during the Wednesday. I believe it was Michael who sent me an email there. He says, I'm into every word about what I said, but let me ask you a simple question. If you find your motivation lower than normal, what would you do? I'll ask Johnny.
So I tried to let me see how I can explain this. So sometimes when you don't feel good, what can help is to do the thing that you would do if you felt better. Now that's phrased very confusingly, so let me explain. So let's say I feel pretty shitty today, but I know that if I felt good, I would work out and that would make me feel even better. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of reverse that and I do something, even if I don't have energy for a full workout. I just put on my sports clothes and maybe I do one set of whatever. And the doing of that kind of breaks the inertia and it kicks off a little bit of a chain reaction where I feel a little bit better. That gives me a bit more energy to maybe have a snack. The snack gives me, you know what I mean? It kind of generates a cycle with that. So I always just start with some action. And it could be as simple as, for me, it's put on my sports clothes and I fully give myself license to not do any training if I really don't feel like it. But 95% out of 100, because I put on the clothes, I'll do at least one set of something, And
then maybe that'll have a
really
knock-on effect.
That often has a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
Just generating energy, and that gets me then excited about stuff.
Yeah, no, I get you. Joshua, $5 super chat. No, you absolutely need to kick Skull and Bones when it's down. Beat the heck out of that thing. I would love to, but I just don't have it. So, I haven't played it. So, I mean, I get it. It is in dire shape and it is sort of funny, but also I just don't even know what's going on. And I guess what I'm saying is it's gone so past being funny that now it's the news. Or not even the news. It's a blurb that I see.
It's like a meme, isn't it?
Yeah.
At this point?
Even less so because I think a meme is, this is going to sound weird, I think a meme is in some way
in the
tangible.
Zeitgeist? Like
and this isn't even, it's past that. It's like, it's not even memeable for me because it means nothing now. It's just, it is what it is. And it's so, I haven't seen it, so I think I'm sort of disconnected from it. For me, when it comes to motivation, and again, thanks to the patrons, you guys are awesome, and you help the channel when I get demonetized for cussing. I guess it's cussing. I will say mine is try to identify what the issue is, but I will also say that make it easy to get some success. I do think, like Johnny said, there's a little bit of a mental thing there that you don't need to succeed at the thing that seems tough. Sometimes succeeding at the smallest stuff can work. So I know some people cook when they're depressed because they are completing a task. They're washing their car. You hear a lot of older people who, when cars needed more repairs or could be done at home, I'm rotating my tires at home. And you would talk to them and you'd be like, no, that works for me. If I'm having if I'm stressed, it's a mechanical thing that I know.
You got something done. You did something.
Yeah. And so I would say that that's the biggest. But I would also say it happens to me. It happened recently, especially like with animal stuff I've dealt with where you are down a little bit, and it is actually okay to not get mired in it, but be down for a day. Like there are times where I'm like, oh, you know what? Because I will say that sometimes there's a bit of fakery that happens when you're up all the time. We joke about Goggins, who I love.
Stay hard.
Goggins is just like fuse your knees and keep going. It's like they're in a different life state than you are. That's probably not the best advice right now.
I think not everybody has to be Goggins, and you can still get
be
a
your
lot of
own
stuff
Goggins.
done.
Be your own Goggins. Be Bloggins. Be Doggins.
Find a version of that works for you, like a degree of that.
Yeah,
he's at 100%. Maybe dial it down.
Yeah, maybe dial it down. That's what Absy and I were talking about when somebody was asking about maxes. I was like, well, maxes are good, but if you fail one time, you're hurt. And so it's like sometimes if you fail at something, if you're down, you can be worse. And I think that some people try the hard. Like you're not saying try the hard thing. You're saying is continue a pattern, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I know some people when like something is difficult or whatever, they'll try to power through it, and sometimes it's better to like take a step back and think for a second and go,
yeah, that's right, because
if I fail in this, it's going to be worse, so what do I do?
Huberman, the science
Canadian
guy,
science guy, the Hube, the chin dude, it's in everything.
He's a medicine PhD, I think, but he talks a lot about health and motivation and stuff, and he had a talk about willpower and grit, and he talked about a hypothesis, which is that willpower is kind of like a consumable resource in a way. So in the sense that if you consume it for one thing, you may not have left for another.
Right.
So according to that, you should be strategic about where you spend your willpower, and that's why I have these systems like the put on the sports clothes, because that doesn't cost willpower to me, because that's a simple action. And oftentimes it has a reaction of, doing some exercise, whatever it is. And even if it's a small amount, I did that without actually needing motivation or willpower, which is really cool, because then I still have left for other shit.
Well, that's why I always say that I have my shoes near my bed so I can roll out of bed. And so in the morning when an alarm, I don't need an alarm too much now, but if I did sleep past the alarm, by the time my brain is like, dude, you're tired.
You don't have to think about it.
I've already put my shoes on and I'm like up, and then I'm like, well, I can just walk to the garage and start working out and running or run around, run near my home. And so then you're just like, well, I'm already up. And just moving forward a lot of times works. But I just want to make sure people understand that, like, that it is okay, sit back and be like, okay, this might be a down day for me. And I have seen friends of mine fail on things because they were like, I'm just going to grit this out. And their output is bad or they're unhappy with their output. And it certainly happened to me. I want to make sure it's not just, I'm just saying, in fact, I'm stating I for sure have it, but I've also talked to others who've had it. So it's not just me. And I think it's best to occasionally go, maybe I need to take, and sometimes you do. Willpower, by the way, there's chemicals involved in it, all that is 100% burnable. In fact, it's funny enough, but willpower strangely enough, in D&D games is a burnable thing, where you're burning that, like, that quick, almost like mental quick twitch. Resource. Yeah, and mental quick twitch is distinctly different from long term. Like there's a huge huge chemical difference. So yeah, man, it's okay to have a bad day. Marco, $5 super chat. Ghost Recon Wildlands, will it ever come back? If it does, pick a setting. I'd love to see it in Central Asia, ex-Soviet state. That game as a co-op playground. I do believe Breakpoint made money. Breakpoint, right? Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Yeah. And Wildlands got way better after patches. I believe Breakpoint, I know Silver likes weird games, but he talks it up a lot and says that a lot of the patches have really improved that.
Yeah. It was a fairly fun game, I would say. I mean, I played a fair amount of it. It had some cool stuff. It had the Punisher guy, right?
Not the Punisher. It had, you mean Michael Ironside? It had the guy from Splinter Cell.
No, Breakpoint had the
Punisher TV show.
Punisher
no, you're absolutely
TV
right.
Show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not Jane. If you're thinking of
If it was Thomas Jane, I'd still
he
be
was
playing
the
the
real
game.
Punisher.
He was the real. People
Nah,
are gonna argue
they're
that.
both good, but
Yeah. You played it like after it was after the popularity died down. You still played it? Is that what you're saying?
No, I played the campaign when it came out, and I fucked around with it a little bit in co-op. So not end game or anything like that. I think those are fun games. I don't know. Thinking about a new one doesn't excite me, to put it this way.
I think that's fair.
Thank you. Yeah, someone corrected me there.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't,
doesn't light
get
your
me
fire.
going.
Right.
But it could be fun, right?
What about people in chat? Does a new breakpoint, well, whatever it would be called now, walking point, but does it interest you, and where would you like to see it? For me, I would have no issue with, I would love to see Africa.
Aren't they all in like jungle type settings?
Well, yeah.
You have wildlands breakpoint.
or thick, foliage, because stealth is, stealth is easier to cover that. Also, Cloth Fan, I hope I'm getting that right. $1. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Ravenos says, Johnny, you should go back to it. It was made very, very good along the line. I think he already, liked it, especially more than me.
Yeah, I was okay with it.
Yeah, the location matters for stealth. Foliage makes it easier, but it's like I would even go, they do the fake locations in a lot of these games. They're like, Makativia, whatever.
Yeah,
if it works.
It's also like building a city is hard, man.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna try to do the same thing but in a fully built city, that's Division 2 level. That's
or Division.
And well, that
3
wasn't
at this point.
That wasn't stealth at all. So it would even maybe be harder because you would need to figure out a way to make it work.
I thought Wildlands was much better once they patched it. I enjoyed it. I had some issues, technical difficulties.
And
Wildlands
they had some cool
PC.
extra content, right? You guys played with the Predator stuff.
Predator, Michael Ironside did some voices, Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell. So yeah, Ubisoft, regardless of any issues, and there's been multiple games I thought this game's going to die and they're still supporting it. So it's like,
dude,
it's ridiculous.
I don't know if it's comparable to any other
company.
Well, Dying Light had, isn't Dying Light?
Yeah, Dying Light was 10 years for the original.
That wasn't published by them, right?
No, that's Techland, I believe, or Deep Silver. Maybe
those guys do a great job. But look at Division 2, man. Year 5.
Yeah.
It's full seasons with like 4 full content patches like every year. And it's still going. Like this year, people still actively playing. A friend of mine just started playing it for the first time, and there's so much content for someone going into it now. It's crazy.
James Marina, $20 super chat. Thank you again for the super chats, man. Sup, guys? Love the podcast. I was listening to a recent podcast where you guys discussed lifting. I hit a personal record yesterday in benching, 225. How much is the most you guys have benched or lifted, or other notable achievements? My max was 375 on bench when I was powerlifting, and lo and behold, what happened? Got hurt. So I don't do that as much anymore.
So that's pounds, right?
Yeah, and it was it's one of the reasons why I always talk about maxes now as being like, not necessarily the smartest thing. We were powerlifting at the time, and I won't say I got injured directly then. I more got injured from martial arts because a lot of it's core work, and I think I weakened it from that. All that stuff, and then once I did hurt it, I was like, benching is fine, but it's more, benching really rarely is used in real life, and so in martial arts, a lot of their stuff is active movements,
it's all
what you would use,
full body, and
and so I'm more into that now. But I would say, that was, I don't know if I was excited by it, but at the time we were,
So I just did a conversion because I don't speak pounds, so that's like 150 kilograms. It's pretty insane.
It's sizable, but it's nowhere near what, some of these kids in high school, doped up or not, are doing. So.
Or The Rock. All natty.
Or The Rock, completely natural. That dude, you could rub on that guy and gain 20 pounds. That dude is secreting.
Lick his arm or something. And
when he goes into a testosterone test, it probably just says yes. It doesn't even have a number. Just, yeah. I would say for me, personal bests are like I work out for a long time, and I like that, and it feels good to be able to work out for like 3 solid hours and not die. So like I'm more into the achievement of being able to do it. But that's I would say personal best is like when you're doing really well in something and other people are like, wow, you're doing really well in that. So it's not necessarily always a number. It's like when somebody says, holy shit, that's insane. That feels good. But you can't hinge on that either. Personal bests are personal for a reason. And I always say that because a lot of people will use personal bests between themselves. And I got to tell you, I've lost lifting partners. I've talked about Jimmy before. When Jimmy left, my personal best didn't get as good because that guy pushed out of me. It was ridiculous. Like martial arts, no issue. Like running, nothing. But when you go to pure mass, that dude could lift the planet. And he was big, but it was ridiculous. Like I would be doing what I thought was awesome, and I would see Jimmy lift and be like, what the is going on? He had, and it wasn't long term. It was it was a couple reps, but it was gnarly.
Yeah. I would just say I don't track that as much because I don't do super focused exercises. I tend to do more like full body stuff, full range. So I won't do, like the tiniest biceps curl just to see how much I can lift in 3 reps. Right. I tend to do more reps. I like to get a full motion on it, and I'm more focused on good form than like the maximum weight. I just want a good stimulus to the muscle, and that's all I need. That, and try to stay on top of the nutrition, and that's it.
Yeah, and nutrition's my weakness, man. It absolutely is, because I'll go fine and I'll start losing. I'll be where I want, and then I've told you, I get those urges or whatever, and I'm a person that like isn't worried too much about an urge. If I want Uncrustables, I'm gonna fucking buy them. I'm not gonna buy a small amount. You've seen the pictures in Discord. It's ridiculous, and it'll cause an issue, and I'll be like, okay, I can't do this. But mine's definitely, if you have it all tied in, you're gonna be in good shape. But it's like also with sitting for doing the reviews. Now they're sitting for 8 hours, even working out for an hour a day probably doesn't offset the negatives. Luckily, I'm usually at 2.5 hours to 3, but it's like, I got to worry about that, because that's just bad for you as a whole. You got to watch, you got to watch all that stuff. And I love games. Yeah. And so I would say I said it before, I have a fetish, or not a fetish, when you get an urge, like I had an urge to play Starfield, and I had to be like, okay, seriously, dude? What are we doing? Like, you just played Starfield for 31 hours in a row, and you're done reviewing it. Like, what are you doing? You need to, like, go somewhere, do something. Yeah. So I get those. Josh, $5 super chat. Happy Friday. Any games you guys can think of that would be improved by not being able to fully pause, like Elden Ring or Dark Souls game?
I don't think that's a good feature, flat out. I don't.
Ooh, okay, there we go. Go for it.
No, I don't see it.
Don't see it. So you think a pause? Almost
if
any game?
If I have to go take a leak,
you want to be able to take a leak.
Yeah, like I don't get it. Why do I have to exit to the main menu?
You can pause a movie. You can put a bookmark in a book. Yeah. Johnny says you should be able to pause a game.
That is the benefit, because when I'm playing like League of Legends, I can't pause that. That's fine. I get it. But if I'm playing a single player game, part of the benefit is I can just chill back, and if I want to take a break to do whatever, go get a smoothie, I can do that. Yep. I don't really do smoothies. I don't know why I said
I mean, when we were younger, most games paused anyway on the Genesis and all that stuff, and those came later where you couldn't. And I remember the first couple times. Do you find
it, like, exhilarating? Like, oh, dude, I can't pause. I have to...
No, it's fucking ridiculous. No, you mean not being able to pause? No, there's no game in the universe other than a multiplayer game that is real-time that has any... You could never... I would sit and I would get fired if I was at a developer and they were like, we're going to go, you can't pause. Let's just go do it. I'd be like, It doesn't, I'm sorry. It's like multiplayer for sure, but a single player game, like you said, people have real lives. It's not a movie for 2 hours. You go into the movie, guess what? You can still walk out and go pee, and you miss a little bit, but you don't die, right? You don't walk back in, and the movie's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, you're not getting
canceled.
invaded by Joe Bob.
Yeah, and if you buy into that, it is also fine. But I have never heard a developer ever in their interviews explain why a game that is single player cannot be paused and have them explain it adequately. Yet. I'm open to being wrong, but I'm not. Anyway, $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Here's a $5 super chat from JR7247. Sup, guys? Thanks for getting me through the Friday podcast. While we're on the topic, Karak, what martial arts are you into? Have you tried Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Yeah, I did. That's a very core one, and I do have an injured core, and I have to get surgery for it, so don't mess around too much with that. Kempo, Goju-Ryu were the ones that I grew up on, and those are pretty much the main ones, and then boxing, which is fun. You know, in any MMA now, they mix together. I grew up on classical martial arts, and I still remember, dude, you get classical martial art, you're doing katas and all that stuff, and then, you know, MMA comes up. And we used to think it was crazy to mix two martial arts, and I loved it. I would go in, I would learn one, and then I would immediately go. So it was 4 hours every night after school, and it was 2 hours, then 2 hours. And I remember the first time, you know, MMA started and people started mixing martial arts. It was awesome. Like, to me, that was great. It was like a sign of the times. Good question. Jay Reaper, $5 super chat. Thank you for your honesty, because my nutrition is great until it's not. Yeah, I know that feeling. You're on top of the world. You're watching your diet. You're watching everything. You're like, I got this shit. And then suddenly you find yourself with your shirt off, eating Doritos, watching a replay of Fringe. And I am talking from personal experience.
And then you cope by saying the Doritos have, I don't know, protein.
Oh, dude, no way.
No,
yes.
It's all protein,
no,
bro.
No, the best is serving size. Because I joke about it all the time. I'm like, listen, if the bag is purchasable, it is a serving size, whatever it is. Don't give me the 4 times on the bag. I want the bag in
3
big
to
numbers.
4 servings? It's
no
a joke.
Way. I want it to say 3,000 calories so I can look and go, because that's probably in a day or two what I'm eating. So it's like, I would rather know that. But my wife has got caught multiple times. She's bought something and be like, hey, this isn't bad. And I'm like, did you notice that's 10 servings? It's not one. It sucks, you know, because calories are so easy to imbibe and so hard to burn off. So you're just like, yeah, I'm going to have some Doritos dipped in cream cheese. And then you're like, yeah, I got to run for 45 minutes to burn off the 5-minute snack. Like, yeah, if there's any God, Johnny, all the wars and stuff, I'll be like, yeah, those suck. But seriously, let's talk about the thing that matters to me right now, which is, why did you do calories the way you did? Sam Torres, $5 super chat. I would love a Billy Jack game. Do you mean Billy Jack, the guy who sold the not slap chop? What did he sell? Flex tape? Is that Billy Jack? Let's see what else. Alan Wake 2 being digital only is 100% anti-consumer, and so is anyone who buys or supports it. Well, guess what, buddy? It's over. That battle's been lost.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you were talking about katas, and it occurred to me, this is an obscure movie reference. Are you ready? I want to see if you know this one. Equilibrium.
Yeah. Gun kata,
movie
baby.
With Christian Bale. Gun katas. They would do like katas, and with that they would evade gunshots and stuff. Yeah. And it was goofy but amazing.
Dude, that was way ahead of its time when you look at that, and then you look at like the Matrix and how they sort of play off of it and all those guys. Gun kata was such a cool idea, and it's not a great movie. It's not like the best.
It was pretty low.
It's pretty low budget, right? Yeah.
Budget, yeah.
But he's remember the special effects?
It was
like, you know, it all looked funny, and you're like, but seriously, that is so sweet, great. Man. Christian Bale, even back then, I was like, dude, this guy's got that. The thing about Christian Bale is he looks like a serial killer. He talks like one, but then you find out he's a pretty family-oriented. There's something about him that if you saw him on the street, you'd be like, dude, that guy might have just murdered somebody. He'd be covered in blood like his American Psycho movie, and you'd be like, that checks out. And he plays the best movies when he's that. Batman, I think he did a great job because of that. He had that, you know, it's just nothing. Poker
facade,
face,
the
I
mask.
guess.
Poker face.
Lord,
Sure.
yeah, $5 super chat. Spider-Man 2 crashed my PS5 7 times and once after the update. Turned it off entirely. Should I have gotten the game physically instead? No, but, well, you could have returned it, right? Technically, you can return to Sony after 3 or 4 hours.
I don't know how their thing works. Can you? Can you refund?
I believe you can refund on Sony, but Abzy has a lot of complaints about
Abzy
Sony's
always
return.
complains.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's not that good.
Must be more. I remember there was a game I tried to return from Sony, and it was fine. It worked quite well, but when in the Discord, there were other people that were trying to return it. It might have been Cyberpunk prior
I think
to
you
them
need to
removing
chase
from
it
the
up
store.
and provide some kind of reason. It's not like Steam where it's no questions asked.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
believe
impression.
you're right. What about you guys? Speaking of that, let's talk about something. Chat. Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, they're the big guys. What are your... And please just cut out the console war. That's not what we're talking about. What I want to know is separately, how have your return experiences been? Because I got to admit, Xbox, I've never had an issue with Microsoft in returning stuff. Nintendo's, I don't even know if they have one because I don't know if I've tried. Sony's mostly success with a couple failures. But I'd like to know in chat. Reynos does remind me, Sony only allows one-time refund. I believe after that, there's something in your account that's like you've already tried to That is...
So wait, so does that mean only one game? You can only refund one?
Yeah, it's one refund ever. It's on your account. Yeah, I think that's what also Abzy was complaining about. Is he tried to refund one game that he couldn't, that was like
What the
crashing
hell?
in an hour, and then another game he didn't like after an hour, and they were like, "You've already returned one." It was.
That's a preposterous
Speaking
policy.
of anti-consumer, you can, like that to me is even, that's like 10 times worse than anything else.
What if you have an issue with 2 games and you need to?
Dude, what if you bought Cyberpunk and then turned around and bought like Spiderman? Spiderman for sure had more crashes after the update. You try to return it. That's unacceptable. Like, if it does, imagine anything in life, Johnny, where they said, what if you had rotten food at a store? You return it and they're like, by the way, can't return any other rotten food. And you're like, the fuck? Yes, I can. I'm going to throw it right in your face. You are accepting it back. Like, that would be so weird. to
Yeah.
have a requirement
That's
for that.
especially damning because on console, it's way more, the game should work in a sense.
Mhm.
Because for PC, there's a certain way in which people are signing up for the uncertainty. Like
A little
everybody
bit,
has
yeah.
a different system, and you understand that it may not work on your system.
Right.
And then there we have, Steam and Epic with no questions asked, refund.
Yeah,
Great.
I think Steam has a 2-hour, right? Steam has the 2-hour window.
But it seems to me like that's backward. Like the people on PC should be more willing to, let's say, accept that the game doesn't
or
run
we'll
for
just
them.
say it's crazy that they have it and Sony doesn't. We'll say it that way.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I would expect consoles in general to have that or better refund systems,
absolutely.
if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So people in here are saying it looks like Sony's definitely had some issues with returns. It looks like haven't done Nintendo. Xbox is okay. Sony's the worst. Yeah, these guys need to fix that too, because we're in a time when these games are more complex. But first of all, due to crash on a... Sorry, man. I'm not even going to go there because I could just bitch forever. But a crash on a console is unacceptable. It's just purely unacceptable to have it blows my mind. And prevalent in Spider-Man. And I have played Spider-Man now and had one crash, Spider-Man 2, had 0 during the review, but I'm seeing a lot of people that are showing video of it. It's not hearsay.
I've had 3 crashes in 20 20 hours.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not a small number for a console.
Yeah, I was going to say 20 hours, it's sound, but it's a crash. Yeah. That's
because keep in mind that every time it happens, it causes you to replay whatever mission you were playing, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on the checkpoint. Sometimes it won't be a lot you have to redo. But if you get unlucky, you might have to, do like a whole room of guys again, which is not a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, Baldur's Gate had some issues too.
Yeah.
You know, Baldur's Gate had some stuff where.
Do we know
like
if it did well on consoles? Because they did.
Strangely enough, did not.
Xbox didn't.
Yeah, I saw the sales. They were saying it either didn't break the top 20 on the PS5 or it barely did or something. Like it didn't do.
And that for them is pretty low considering the numbers.
And considering the hype of the console version. Now, anybody in chat, if there's something new, feel free to correct me on that. But that's what I saw at the time, and we talked about it a little bit during one of the podcasts where I was like, "That's interesting. It's low. I don't care if it's low. I like the game." But I do think PC is probably it ran well on low-end PCs, even though Act 2 and 3 had some bugs. So I think most people probably just bought into it on PC and said, whatever, I'll just deal with it. You know, because they like Baldur's Gate, and it was early access on PC. PC was that thing's main platform. Can we agree on that? Like Baldur's Gate's main platform was PC.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it was. I've had at least 50 console crashes on PS4, 5, and Series X. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. Like, it happens. It's just unacceptable. I just don't get it. And it's Wasteland 3. That's another one. Dude, Johnny, didn't you and Reg have all kinds of issues with Wasteland 3?
Yeah. Our game reset completely like 3 times.
Do you know, man, you would see.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wish I had those, but it is sometimes, there's some, not invigorating, but when you have those kind of experiences, it's good to point them out. And like, I didn't have them, but if I had, you can expect that video would have, and me, when I get really mad at something like that, where it's not just that it's unacceptable, I'll say it's unacceptable in 50 ways, where I'm just like, nope, no chance of you ever explaining why that's acceptable. Because you guys were having weren't you having connection issues, reload issues?
Yeah.
Reg said
we had
the game reset fully, and you guys saw the cutscene again at the starting.
No, the whole game, the whole quest line. So we played for like 3 hours, and when we came back to base, something about the script bugged up, and it went back to the very beginning of the game, like the first dialogue you have and then the whole thing just started from the start. That happened 2 times.
It's making me
first time we played 3 hours
just hearing about it.
And then the second time we played 1 full hour thinking it was back to normal, and then it happened again. Yeah, but we were just unlucky. I didn't hear of anyone else running into that.
I heard people running into issues, but you guys had the, you know.
Yeah, that's just unplayable, right? Because you literally can't progress.
It's beyond unplayable, man. The Ascent had some co-op issues. Luckily, I got away with I got away with not having those. Cadiz actually played. Josh, who was on the podcast for years, he played. We did fine, but then I believe it was maybe you, but I know Absy was like, dude, I can't stay connected for longer than like. So he played the single. He enjoyed that, but like, if you put co-op in your fucking game, figure your shit out. You know. Speaking of that, what's the best co-op experience you've had in a game? My dog that had surgery, I got to put him out so that he can go to the bathroom.
Like this year?
Yeah, this year. Well, any year, just like the most enjoyable co-op that you remember.
Damn, that's a tough one. Chat, help me out. What is the best? I'm gonna cop out. The best of all time. I think it might still to this day be State of Decay 2. There's something magical about the combination of building something and then having to also fight off the hordes and go out for loot, and the greed of like just one more place. Let's hit one more place, even
State
though
of Decay 2.
You know, Karak was banged up and he was all high on coffee because you could drink coffee in the game.
I remember
about you were banged
experience.
up.
Yeah, I was.
And
I
high
led
on
you
coffee.
guys. I don't remember if you were in this part of it, but Reg, and it might have been you, but there was one of those bloaters or whatever, and I was like, let's do it. And I remember Reg was like, no. It was like Leroy from World of Warcraft.
Terrible
He was
mistake.
Like, don't do it. And I was like, let's take him down. I had like 1 hit point. I'm the guy like in the movie that gets killed by saying, oh, you know, let's do it. And I ran forward and got us wasted. Admittedly, I think I do that a lot of times in games. When we're all together, I take a lot more risks than I ever do by myself. State of Decay 2 is a great example, dude. That was, I mean, Remnant, I thought we had a really good time, Remnant 2. That was you and me doing co-op, and I think that game was, it worked for the most part for us, I think, the entire way through. That was a great
And that's
time.
a game you can easily return to, like I say you, but in general, you know.
Absolutely.
I think people can return to it because it has a lot to offer. It's really layered. You can take a different class, it plays completely different. And
do you know another one, Johnny? There. And I mean, I reviewed this game and said it wasn't worth getting at the time, and completely now it's definitely patched up. Is that Back for Blood, man? I really had a good time once they patched the card system and got that thing up and running. We played just, I would say about 2 or 3 months ago, and there were so many people in our chat playing. It was just like, and it was a blast. It was a blast. So, yeah, those are really good experiences. Some people are saying Left 4 Dead, but I saw It Takes Two and A Way Out, and I played A Way Out with Reg. 3 a.m. for me. So what's that for you? 8 a.m. And he was still up. And Reg, when he gets tired, his aim somehow gets worse. Reg's aim already is not good. So we were playing the last level of that game, and it was, he was like almost running into walls because he was so tired, but he was nice enough to help me with the review. And we had a hilarious time, but he was... Have you ever played a game where you're so tired that you're like not walking correctly in it?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you're just like, dude, this is, I am so
the basic systems are failing.
Yeah, you're like, dude, it's a game. It's a gamepad. It should walk on its own, and you're in the walls. I played Halo with a friend, Rich, and I fell asleep while we were playing, and he woke me up, and it was just me walking into a wall, and he didn't know. He did all the battles himself, thought I was with him, and he's like, dude, you've been asleep for like 7 minutes. You know, I was just conked out. It Takes Two, Helldivers.
Oh yeah, It Takes Two was awesome. That was definitely a highlight. I played that with Reg. That was a lot of fun. We also, did you? Yeah, I also played A Way Out with Takedown, I want to say. Yeah, I think no, you played it with
experience.
No, hold on. You played it with Takedown.
I played It Takes Two with Takedown, but I think you mean you played
A Way Out.
A Way Out. Yeah.
Didn't you play that with? No,
I don't. Yeah, I didn't play that.
Mixed up.
Yeah,
no, I think I played it with style. Takedown. You played it with Reg.
Yeah, and then maybe switched on the other one. But I played. I played games with Takedown where it's just worked brilliantly, and then I've talked about this before, but Takedown in Hunt.
Yeah, his energy varies a lot. So you know, it's awesome when it's in the flow. And then when it isn't, it's hard to...
It's ludicrous mode with that dude. When you get him in a game that is like, he's flagging on his energy, it's starting to go down, you're like, uh-oh, here we go. When we started Hunt, he was like, dude, this is awesome. He's listening to birds, and then after a while, he's shooting the birds. That's when I know that guy's
lost interest. He's like shooting the bird.
Yeah, that's why when I review a game and I need Takedown's help, it's like I almost always know what section I need him. Like, I'll be like, I need you for, 1 hour, this little... and then he's notoriously bad with planning, too. So you'd be like, let's play, and then he disappears from Discord for a week. And you're like, dude, I was trying to review a game. What are you doing? Yeah, he's awesome. I love that guy. Let's see. We got... I've been playing co-op with my friend in Dead Island. Yeah, Dead Island is a really... Dead Island and Dying Light are both two excellent co-op games. Do you like co-op more than MMOs? Like, legitimately, I know you're a big fan of Final Fantasy, but when you had that experience with Reg, good or bad, you had experiences with Takedown. If you looked at the co-op with me, do you like co-op or do you like MMO?
Way more.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting
Dude, in fact, Final Fantasy 14 is a single-player game for me.
Right. I forgot. Yep.
Like, in a sense, I will still do dungeons with actual people and not the bots, but I might exchange a word or two in chat, but it's a completely like single player.
That's
experience
awesome that you can do it too. Anybody in chat, do you like MMOs or do you like, we'll say up to 4 players?
Yeah, I like the co-op a lot more for sure.
Feels more directed. It almost feels like they've just said, here's the single player game, but you can play, you know.
And it could be, I'm open to, finding the MMO where there's a group of us and it just, the planets align and we're all into it and we're going there, we're doing stuff together, then it would be just as awesome.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
That's never happened for me, like the convergence of game and people and moment.
Yeah, dude, it's gaming to me is mostly single, but when you get that co-op game or whatever, there's a magic when there's something about playing with another person. You're talking on Discord or whatever, and you're doing the Scarab battle in Halo 3 or something. You get done, there's like this breathless moment where you're like, dude, we just did that in a video game. Like, we just did that. Like that, there's something magical about that feeling that is hard to parse. Do you do board games with your family? So do you like board games and physical stuff more than co-op games in video games? Or do you like the physical board games?
No, I think it's different. It's a different speed for me. It's a different speed. I would say it's way more laid back and chill for the board game stuff.
Right.
Because we're talking stuff out, I think, the thing with co-op, it's hard when the game requires commitment.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a group of people who are at the same level of commitment as you are, and at the same level of like time devotion, because you will have the person who is always ahead of you in the MMO because they have more hours in the day. And it bugs me because then I'm going in there and I'm always the chump who's 10 levels behind.
Cadiz, we're talking about you.
Yeah, we always mention Cadiz in this because he's just one level ahead.
Fucking dude's got no limiter, man. I'll be like, do not play this, man. I don't want to see level 15 over your character. Let's do this. Okay, no problem.
And this is also why I didn't do co-op on Baldur's Gate with a friend. She was saying, hey, do you want to co-op? And no, because she will play way more than I do because she has more time. And then we're going into it with a completely unbalanced dynamic where I'm experiencing stuff for the first time and like she's sick of seeing it. So she doesn't have patience for me to figure out stuff, which is understandable. But then I want to have my own experience in a way. And then if we do a second playthrough, that's great. We can do that. And same with Lords of the Fallen. I wouldn't do a co-op run with someone who's at a different, like we either experience it for the first time together or I'll rather do my own progression.
I think that especially for me, the one thing I don't like, I have some friends where we'll go in a shooter game and I notice they're looking where the mission is going to pop up, and I realize they played it before. And there's this feeling of like, oh man, really? Like you've already I like that surprise together. I find that more enjoyable. And that's admittedly I don't want to control their time, but what I will do is get people where we buy into it and they still don't do it. Like, okay, man, let's do this. No problem, we'll do it. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I'm scheduled. I won't play anymore. And I'm like, dude, you're absolutely lying to me. Like, why? I don't even know why I believe them. I must have hope in my bones because every time some of my friends can sell me on it.
It happens a lot. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. It's tough, man. That's why I like games like, just to wrap it up, games like Back 4 Blood, because it doesn't quite matter as much. You can jump in there. I don't really care if you have a killer deck or whatever built up.
Right, because
it's fine.
It is fine, and they do a good job to where it doesn't. It's going to be random anyway.
It doesn't feel like you're
behind
this Chad and I'm a chump. Like
Chad and chump.
It's fine. It works. Yeah, Chad and chump.
Gathry's Galaxy $2 super chat again. Thank you very much for the super chats.
Thank you.
Hey, Javier says, I think Discord's been really good for co-op games. Dude, it's a game changer. It's a game changer for discussion. And I was so against it when it started. I didn't like it. I was using one of the old ones. I don't remember, whatever. I was using some ancient one with Cadiz and a couple other people. And then once Discord really got its balls and decided where they were going and sort of,
Yeah.
because remember they were doing game stores and all this bullshit. And
Dude, they started with the game store.
Yeah, and it's just like, dude, you're not going to compete. It just doesn't work. And then they sort of locked it down. Now, I did want to talk about something because Abzi and I talked about it a little bit, but I did not get to ask you, and you posted it. EA developing Iron Man. So, my thoughts. I'm just excited. But what do you like when you saw that? Are you hopeful, or are you like, it's going to be Immortals of Avium?
No, I am super excited.
Okay. Gotcha.
I mean, yeah, we talked about Anthem a lot, so we don't need to rehash that. But I saw moments of excellence in that, where I thought there's something here that they could build a game around. It's not the game we got, but there's something.
Mm-hmm. And so you're hoping that maybe this is what Abzi and I talked about, is if they could figure out how to not have 30 seconds of Anthem gameplay, but had 30 minutes, that it could be...
Yeah. You need an actual flying suit, because in that game, there was one class that could actually fly around, but all the others were gimped most of the time.
Yeah,
and you were just
if it didn't have to do with
floating
heat or
slightly.
something, I don't even remember, or something
there was
like
all
that,
kinds of limitations, and you could only fly freely when you were like traversing, bigger stretches of area. But I loved the experience of like loading into a mission, changing your loadout, your skin, like what you were wearing, the colors of it, they looked awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me excites me. It kind of like Spiderman. Just give me a bunch of Iron Man suits to unlock, and everything else will flow from that, I guarantee.
Yeah,
well, give me that and a good movement system, of course.
Yeah, a good movement system would be awesome. I think with Iron Man also, because we talked a little bit about this, is that with Iron Man you also need to nail the voice, and I think that is one, I guess, little bit of a worry, is that they wouldn't be able to nail a voice, because I'm a big, what's his name, Robert Downey Jr. is just so good at the voice of Iron Man, and so I would love to see, or want to see, how they were going to handle that. I just am a big fan of his voice. What else do we got going on here? Captain Brainlap says, if you could swap the playable character in any game to the antagonist, which would it be? For example, playing Bowser in Super Mario Brothers. That is a good question.
Yeah, that's funny to think about.
Dude, what would I switch? Anybody in chat, what would you switch? What would be a protagonist and antagonist you would switch in a game?
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where the antagonist comes across as somebody I would like to play as. Man, dude, you might have stymied me on a question there, because I'm trying to think.
Was there anyone in Baldur's Gate, in terms of the enemies you faced, that you thought was an interesting character?
No. Man, let's see if chat's got Sephiroth in Final Fantasy.
Joker and Batman, someone said. That could be interesting.
Joker and Batman could be interesting, yeah, where Batman's got everything set up and the Joker's just all about sort of trying to knock it down. That would be difficult to do, though. Playing Joseph Seed in Far Cry, well, that would be weird. That would be a hard sell.
I thought about that, but with Far Cry 6, if you played Esposito, but then who are you playing against? Because your character is a bit of a husk, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit of a husk. I mean, that's the thing, is I think they also don't want to always... They don't want to make the villain that likable,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's just one of those things. But yeah, anybody in chat? We got Handsome Jack. Oh, Handsome Jack, but isn't he, in the Telltale ones, isn't he the main character? Or you play with him? Or are you the main character? Man, it's been a while since I played the Borderlands ones. Yeah, that's a difficult question, and a good one. I think you actually stymied me on that one, man. I just do not know if I have. Yeah. That it's almost it's almost impossible for me to think of one. SP3CU says, WB Games selling Mortal Kombat 1 seasonal fatalities as DLC. So I was not aware of that. My personal belief is that you should never, ever sell animations like Callisto. You should never sell any of that kind of stuff as DLC. To me, that's just wrong. I don't like the idea, but I don't know about you. Did you know that they were selling fatalities as DLC?
No, I don't think any of that is good.
It doesn't fly, right? It just doesn't fly it's just not. It's not something they should do. If you have a new character, you want all the moves. If you have these characters and they're seasonal, I guess you could do a Halloween fatality, maybe.
Because it's not a. Well, is it a live service game? No.
Well, I mean, it's no, because I believe you can play that one with it unconnected.
Yeah, you could buy
you
it.
Can't do multiplayer.
And,
right.
Play the.
I don't like the idea. I think that's a terrible idea, but
I feel like it should always be like what we have with Spiderman 2, where you buy the game full price. It has a ton of cool suits in it. And if they come up later with a DLC or something, that'll be great.
Yeah.
And if a different game has something like a battle pass with more skins, I'm okay. Maybe more animations in the battle pass, then maybe I'm okay with that. But I would want the initial.
Yeah, you want the right. You need the
initial
lore.
Should be full.
Yeah.
Full fat.
And the foundation. Honestly, I'm also a big believer that if you did give them away for free, you would probably have a positive. We've noticed Dying Light is sold crazy for 10 years. And the reason why is because the DLC is usually free other than the following. So it's
dude, and the Injustice had a bunch of stuff all included.
They did have some skins, but all included. Sure. That game was ridiculous in the amount of content. Yeah, it was awesome. It was such a good thing to see from a fighting game too, because I think a lot of fighting games, sometimes you're like, this is skating. It's a little skatey. It doesn't have as much as it sort of seems to. And fighting games for me, I think, need to have a ton. Somebody was saying in Red Dead...
it was like... oh, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, they said Red Dead Dutch, switch Arthur for Dutch, protagonist, antagonist. Even though Dutch isn't... I mean, he is technically one of the major antagonists. That would be cool. I would like to play a game as Dutch. That would be cool. But what were you saying? I'm sorry. You were still talking about the microtransactions. Do you remember?
I'm sure he will come back to me. It's fine.
LARP 101 says, what do you get when you join the patron? It depends on the level. Free shirts for some of the levels, as well as access to the Discord. And we do chats. We do a lot of chats and text, but we've been doing a lot of video, where somebody will stream a game and then we all yak. And I think a couple times now in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had 25 people in there. We do discussions on video games, and it's a safe place. I mean, this sounds weird, but on Twitter, when I post something, no matter how glowing it is, the told you this, the very first response is, no, it's stupid. Right?
Immediately.
Yeah. And it sounds, I do charge for it because I do think people, we've even seen it, people self-police if they're a part of a community that they have to work to get into, regardless. And it's just awesome. It's like one of those places where people... I don't think there's any problem with free ones, but I just merged them, and it's been nothing but a success. We also do a lot of UFCs. You have to buy it on your own. We don't stream it. That would be ridiculous. But we all watch it. Done a few NFL games. UFCs are very fun because some people who don't know UFC will get one out of the blue because they're not cheap. And then suddenly you have a fan of the UFC who never thought, they'll be like, oh my God, it's not just a bunch of meatheads. Sometimes it is, but I think that's cool. I just think not safe. I'm not saying it right, but just a place where you can say you dislike something. We might joke and tease, but for the most part, everybody's like, I get you. And it just doesn't happen anywhere else, for better or worse. It's just not where it occurs.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. Johnny's got one as well for Twitch, or Johnny Plays Live. And his is free, so he's better in all ways than mine. But, that's Johnny. He already brought up one thing I missed in the review, so I think we can all agree. Johnny's just better. I agree.
I agree. Our Discord is a nice place because when something starts to derail, it always the people there kind of pull it back.
Yeah.
So we don't have to be too much on top of it. Only a couple times we've had to like jump in there.
Yeah, sometimes you got to jump in because people can get, it's difficult when you type something into text. And I've done it myself, and I've had to really learn, be like, oh, this is, and I do it like at night. I'll be like, no, ha ha ha. Look at it later
text is a different beast.
Yeah,
because I could have an entire conversation with you, and we can have like some risque banter, but when you do that over text, sometimes it will just rub you the wrong way because you'll think, wait, is he like shitting on me here? What's
exactly. Dude, I told you, Denovan, who worked for me for 6 years, we could not ever communicate on text. We had Messenger in the office, and I'm like, no, come here. Let's just talk. Because I don't know what it is, man, but his way of writing would set me off. I'd be like, what is, and even when we do board games, sometimes it sets it off. Like, because he does question some stuff, but sometimes text is just not the best way. But yeah, that's what you get. I try to make sure, and we give away games that I buy for reviews and stuff like that. But it's just a fun place, man. It's cool. It's been an awesome time having people on Discord and Patreon, and when that dies, I will be very sad. I thought about it a couple weeks ago. I was like, there's going to be a day. Maybe I'll die first. Who knows? But there'll be a day where, like, a thing will die. MySpace for people was really popular, and then it died, and, you don't see any more posts. That will probably break my heart. Like, the time when, for whatever reason, maybe it's a new system, or maybe it's just I decide not to do this anymore.
That's like a stoic meditation you did there, thinking about something bad that might happen in the future, visiting it for a minute, and then pulling back.
Yeah. Oh, no, I do pull. I think it's good to know, because
it does
makes
help you value it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Helps you appreciate it. What else do we got here? We got some other questions. Let me bring up this. If anybody has questions, feel free to post them, but I'm going to read these guys because the people in Discord and in Patreon, I try to get theirs first. Best movie or montage sequence. Now, I'm going to change that and also say video game. So if there's a video game cutscene, feel free in chat. If anybody in chat has a video game cutscene, a movie montage, or a moment that like just resonates forever. Like you said, gun kata. In a way, that first time you see gun kata, your brain's like, what? So is there any for you, a movie that the montage works, or a moment like the gun battle in Matrix 1 in the subway, something that resonates for you?
Yeah, there are many. I mean, I still love the classic Rocky training montage. Really all of them, right? Like the classic one where he's eating raw eggs, and then he's jogging and like up the stairs, right, and stuff. I also love the one where he's carrying logs or something in the snow, or like pulling logs, something or am I
helps.
Getting that mixed
I just
up?
watched this last night, by the way, at Rocky 4, because that's my answer as well. But yeah, what's happening is horses are pulling. In Russia, they're pretending Russians don't have trucks, and so it's like it's a horse pulling logs in the snow, and it flips over, and he helps them put the carriage back up. And then later, there's some logs where he's chopping. But it's awesome, dude, that you mentioned Rocky, because I don't care how old or young you are, the montage in Rocky
resonates.
It does, and Rocky 4 has 2, which is unusual. Most movies will have 1. Rocky has 2. It's got pre-Adrian coming to his place of solitude, and he's already like, it's a slower beat, but he's like, he's doing his thing. Technically, Rocky really has 4. It's got when she tells him he can't win. But then she comes in, she's like, I'm here. And he's like, for the entire thing, she's like, yeah. And then the music's like, hearts on fire. And the great thing about that, and one of the psychology behind it, is that the music, and the reason why it's cut that way, is because if a person were to listen to the music, they will remember the montage visually. But if you turn the music off, you will easily get lost you will not know exactly where it is in the lyrics. And so a good montage is one that requires you to basically visualize it at the same time. And that one does, where it's cut on beats. And I loved that at the end, if you watch it closely, Drago's doing more.
Rhythmic.
He's getting shot up with steroids. He's running in a highfalutin area. And then you got Rocky out there, like you said, throwing rocks and shit.
Yeah.
But the best part is that at the very end, if you watch close, Drago gives up during training. And it's supposed to just show you that he worked really hard. He stops and he's almost instantly breathing normal. So you get this idea this guy's a machine. But if you also watch close, he gives up, and then they let Rocky go a little bit longer. And it was that moment when I watched a montage, I was like, that might be the perfect montage.
And they do the evil lighting for him.
Oh,
right?
yeah, the
the
Russian red lighting.
Red.
Yeah, and like the little dials and display. When they turn that machine up, if you ever turn a running
Terminator.
machine that high, you're gonna blow your ankles out. And
Dude,
it's
ridiculous.
Dolph really moving it, man. Dolph's on there just like, bitches, I can do this all day. And
it's
I remember
ridiculous training.
Bro, and he's got the machine that looks like it's from the 1920s, the twist machine. He's just like, and I was like, dude, Dolph's a machine. What? Rocky's gonna. And then it cuts to Rocky doing two things which are unbelievable. First is the leg lowering, but the next is where he's got his legs hooked up. And he's doing crunches inverted.
Crunching
but then
up.
he holds himself out. You know, Stallone is like, there's few beasts like Stallone.
Yeah.
Stallone's like holding himself out, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like these two, this might be real. Oh man,
the dude has got more like lateral muscles than people have in the front or it's crazy.
Yeah, he's got like, a 12-pack, a baker's dozen plus 4. That
it's
guy
awesome.
And what was great about that is they were both ripped, and so you get little tiny Sylvester.
It's funny how much those movies resonated, like you say, across many
years.
generations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Years.
Yep.
And even to this day, you could watch one of those and be like, that was a good.
Yeah, that was
movie.
a good. Well, and the thing about that, this is what's even crazier to me, dude. They waited till Rocky 3 to teach Rocky how to box. So I don't know if you watched it, but in 1 he's a bruiser, in 2 he's a bruiser. It's all heart, and then in 3, Lang beats him, and then Apollo Creed says, "I'm going to teach you how to box." And dude, Stallone's got some balls to say in a boxing movie, we're not going to teach the guy really how to box until he loses the first time. And you find out all the matches he's done have been, Burgess Meredith's character says, they were has-beens. Like, I saved your life. Like, you're not a great boxer. You have a lot of heart. So I put you against people who weren't great. And that's why Stallone loses, is he's like, holy shit, I wasn't good this entire time. And then also, Stallone, when he's crying over when the trainer dies in 3, like, that still gets me. Where he just yells. He's just, no. And I was all, oh my God.
And the one line where he says, it's not about how hard you get hit.
In Rocky 5, yeah.
It's about
how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I butchered that line. That's
all right. Everybody knows it. I mean, it's a dude,
yeah, so it's it's about getting back up, and we've seen that in many versions. Batman Begins, right? It's why do we fall, Bruce?
Yeah.
It's so we can get back up again. And I always really kind of found value in that. And even recently I read a book called How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big.
Oh,
that was pretty cool. Yeah, it was really cool about just building a diverse talent stack and failing at a lot of shit and learning in the process. I find it beautiful, man. Just embracing the failure and then getting something from it every time and just building yourself up from it. It's great,
dude. It speaks to me whenever anybody. It sucks to lose. So the people who are like, I love to lose. I'm like, I get it, but I don't. It does suck, but in those sucky times, if you do, there have been times where I've failed a review or failed, something. I'm like, that, what the hell? And you get frustrated, which then stops you from learning. But there's a couple times where like I walk away and then I start thinking about I'll be working out and be like, oh, you know what, man? Like, yeah, I should probably do this or probably learn from that. And it just feels good, to like walk away from it and go, yeah, okay. And another thing is we all have main character syndrome. So we all think we're Rocky, and it's like you think people are looking at you, and certainly in social media, eyes can be on you. But there are times where I'll do something or say something and be like, why am I stressed about, I'm stressed because I want to do good, but at times there's the additional stress that isn't real. And it's unhealthy. It's not good. And that's what I liked about Rocky is almost all of his was like, he cared about his family, didn't care if somebody said he was crappy. But then when his trainer says, you're not a good boxer, you're a bruiser, you got a lot of heart, but you're not a good. And I remember going, what's going to happen? And then Apollo Creed shows up and he's like, I'm going to teach you.
And that's a beautiful message too, accepting where you're at and then building from there, right? Because that's the only way to improve.
Yep. And
accept
I think
where
that
you're at, embrace
all
the
lose
journey.
it. That's
sure.
the other thing is
we get deluded. We think we're better than we are.
But I mean, also, you can fail at failing. Okay. What I mean is that even though I'm saying it right now, it doesn't mean I won't fail at learning from a mistake. That will happen too. Where I'll be like, I got to learn from a mistake, and then you won't, and you'll be like, dude, what? And then you got to remind yourself, okay, I do have to learn something. And sometimes you're right, and the world is wrong. As in, it's your thing. This is the way you are, and it's fine. But it can be difficult. Yeah. So that's a good question, man. And he didn't put who it was in the, or not you, but whoever didn't put who it was in my notes. So I just want to say thank you for that question, because
we've been going on about Rocky for a while. Hopefully people didn't tune out.
No, we still got 600. What do we got? We got 2 hours and 30 minutes. We're actually short. We're doing well. The other thing that I was asked, and I want to bring this up because this is actually, we always have really good, weird life advice, like sort of kind of questions. And I think it's awesome when it comes up, and I'm sort of surprised by a question somebody asks, which it comes out of left field. Those are the best questions. Not, Johnny's got some left field questions. Those are me and Johnny playing around. But when it comes to the Discord, there'll be somebody who asks a question, and one of them they sent me this. Let me look at this. This is awesome. How do you handle loss of a loved one? And the reason why I thought it was awesome is because it's sad as a question. Like, how do you handle the loss of a loved one? And do you think there's actually I don't know if there's a cat. So I thought about this last night. I'm not 100% sure there's an answer that works all the time. For loved ones are if you love them, if they're very close.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't know if there's, like, if I told you, here's how I got through it, not 100% sure there's a catch-all answer for that, unless you think there's one. I'm not going to say you're wrong.
I would agree with that. I think it really depends too. Was it a partner, was a family member?
Yeah,
I think
spouse.
It's all different.
Yeah.
But for me, and I haven't had a lot of loss. I've lost my grandfather, my grandmother, and that was tough because we were close. But I wouldn't compare that to, for example, losing a father or a mother or a significant other. So I just want to caveat that. So I don't have sense. A big loss. But what I would say is allowing yourself to grieve is really important, because what some people tend to do is they say, no, I can't, let myself, I have to stay strong, right?
Yeah.
And sure, you do, but we have this built-in mechanism to get over losses. This is biological. We know this from evolution, which is grieving. So there's a process, and this can take maybe months, if it was someone very close to you. But I do think it's important to allow that. Give yourself time, allow to feel the bad emotions, understand it's going to suck for a long time. Don't look for miracle solutions there,
right?
And kind of embrace that part, I think, and almost out of respect for the person, because they did mean a lot and they did leave a big gap behind. You kind of honor them by allowing yourself to grieve and suffer for a while, and gradually, try to pick yourself up. Don't just wallow in it for years. But no, yeah. Again, like you say, there isn't really a great answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, they're, and all of the lost types are different. So, for some people, let's say somebody's single and they just have animals. I'm not going to tell you that the chemical releases in your body are any different than somebody who loses a family member. Like, because I've seen people be that close with an animal friend because that's their solitary companion. Like, it sucks regardless. I think the weirdest answer I would have is that it's going to be different for you, but understand that it's also different for everybody else. Because I've had some people tell a friend, well, just remember the good times. And I'm like, oh, man, that's the worst advice in the world. Like they've heard that a billion fucking times. Everybody in the world has heard that. Like, you're not helping. You're not. The best, I think, a lot of times is, do you need anything? That's, as a friend, it's just like, do you need anything? And then verify that they're not saying no and they really do, because that can, maybe double check and be like, are you sure? Or if you do, contact me. Whatever way works for you. Don't go around the way I usually need to be contacted. But it is one of those things where you really do need to help others, because I personally believe that, like, it's bad for you, but when somebody else has it, sometimes you think they're fine and they're not. And that can be rough for them. Because I know some people's relationships are much farther and much more distant with family members, but they might be really close with a brother, a sister, something like that. And it's rough. So it was a good question. I definitely appreciate it because it makes people think about that kind of stuff. Yoshigi says, I hate that advice. Remember the good times. Basically telling you to deal with it. Yeah. I hate that shit. What else do we got up in chat? I got a Twitter real quick. Let me do the Twitter ones, and then because I did skip them last time. Michael says, I have one. Games have become more demanding hardware-wise, but the gameplay, animations, environments still feel the same. Or he says still are the same. I'll say feel the same. There aren't destructible environments. The animations are the same. NPCs are dumb, and enemy AI is the same. The world feels painted, and you can't really interact. So I guess his topic or question is, do we agree with that? Which is funny because I just complained about that with Alan Wake. I mean, I would agree in a lot of ways. There's the occasional game that's pushing something, like the finals is pushing destruction in a multiplayer game. Minecraft was a mind-opening experiment. Like, when you first play Minecraft, you're like, holy shit, what? Like, I can change everything. But for the most part, a lot of them do feel graphics are what get improved. Ray tracing. Has there been any game that has really sort of shocked you recently? Like, you've played it and been like, holy crap, this is a game changer.
Well, I do think the two worlds overlapping in Lords was a cool showcase of what can be done with that. Yeah, because that was, truly, it's kind of like a world constructed on top of another, if you want to think of it that way. And I thought that was clever, and it was well executed in a way that wasn't overly confusing, like you felt you were missing out on stuff the whole time for not being in one dimension or another. So I thought that was a good example and execution of that. I would say, Spider-Man 2 makes great use of the fast loading and the streaming stuff from memory, that, I mean, we see some crazy stuff there in terms of the city, the speed at which you're traversing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I just feel that, like, I do agree that Spider-Man, especially some of the stuff you see in Spider-Man, but I do feel like we've seen that in a couple flying games or whatever. Like, I don't know if games have a place where they can change. You said the two worlds. That's different because Medium tried it and didn't really succeed in it.
Yeah.
So that would, I just feel like when you look at them, it's difficult to change the game without.
Yeah, it is.
Because a lot of times you have to compare yourself to other games anyway, or those people built other games. So it's like, yeah, it is like Duke Nukem, but it is like, I think the biggest thing I've seen is engine changes that allowed you to do two things in a game, which just was unheard of. It used to be just racing, and then suddenly you're doing GTA, which lets you race and shoot. and adventure and have cutscenes. That was, to me, one of the biggest changes was growing up on one engine games. One viewpoint games. It was all 2D side scroller. You didn't go 2D side scroller, first person shooter, RPG. You know what I mean? It's like now we can do those. That's to me is like the one big change that I've like come out of games and been like, yep, that's a cool change. That's something that we've seen. Is there anything that you want? Is there anything that you feel would be a cool improvement in games that we don't see, other than no pause always being available?
No, I think I want to keep seeing them take advantage of the quick, loading times for things like instant context switches, like we talked about. I think that's really powerful, and we've only started to see some of those
instant switches between characters and
and like we talked about the mind place and the real world, where it's an instant switch and it's a completely different context.
I'm seeing a lot of people here say that there isn't a lot that I'm looking at. Like
I think also it's hard, right? Because if there was something that obvious that you and I could come up with it now in this conversation, that would be such low-hanging fruit for people to do.
That is true. If we came up with the sudden answer right now, it'd be like, well, why did nobody come up?
Either geniuses or,
Yeah, there's only two sides of that. Either you're geniuses or everybody else is stupid. I would say also the building mechanics in Tears of the Kingdom. Putting the build mechanics and letting you really flexibly add and build stuff in a game. It's not completely new, but I do think that it was done in a way that it causes organic gameplay where people are doing stuff that, dude, I reviewed that game and I did what I thought was cool. Like, I was like, man, I'm pretty smart. I built like a jet, I built like a jetpack. I'm pretty intelligent. I built this, or I stopped an enemy from being able to fight me by dropping logs in front of them. This is awesome. And then I saw videos a week later and I was all, wow, dude, I'm stupid.
One thing that does occur to me is dynamic weather systems.
Yeah.
Why can't I play Lords of the Fallen or some other game, and sometimes it's raining in the level, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's windy, maybe it's snowing, right?
Yeah, we see a lot of those games just going with one, don't we?
Yeah, and what I would like to see too is maybe like an evolution. So I start the game and maybe it's one season, and then as I play and I get towards the end, maybe it becomes winter, like that type of thing. I think it's not done that often.
Do you know a game that did do it, but not dynamically, but really shocked me, was Bully from Rockstar. You were in school.
Really?
Yeah, you were in school.
Oh,
and
because the season progresses.
I was so blown away
Persona
when that happened.
5 kind of did something like that.
Right. And I remember my friend brought over, I believe it was a PS2, and it was the first time I'd played Bully. It'd been out for a while. And the season moves, and it's Halloween. And my brain was like, are you kidding? This is, and it makes everything old seem slightly new again. And you're like, well, if they did this, is there, and then you find out, you can smash pumpkins with your slingshot or whatever. You're like, oh my God, this is.
Yeah, because you're looking at the same level with a different lens.
Yeah. And by the way, audio's important. If you're playing a shooting game and it rains, the chance of you hearing somebody is completely different than when it's sunny. It's also dry brush versus wet brush sounds different, and sometimes sound
difficult.
Yeah. What else do we got before we wrap this up, man? Anybody in chat got any questions?
I did have
go for it.
Like a more philosophical quandary to ponder. But I don't know so help me out. I don't know if we've talked about the ship of Sisyphus thing. So it's this idea that there's a ship and you replace one plank at a time from it. So let's just say you remove one plank at a time, and at one moment, there's only one plank left of the ship, right? And then you build it up again with new planks. Is it the same ship? Is it now a different ship? And then when you take that metaphor to people, we are renewing our cells daily, right? Like
Right.
at some point, all your cells are completely new. So they're the connection with the planks in the metaphor. So at what point are you actually not the same person, at different times in your life? And you could take that a layer deeper and think of yourself 10 years ago. When I do that, I think, wow, that's a different human being based on, my actions and the way I thought about stuff. Thoughts?
I believe we're different moment to moment too, because my attitude might be one way. I might treat a comment different one moment than I do the next, and then I'll go back to another way. So I would say, yeah, we're never the same. I mean, I do believe that, like, the container's the same for the most part. You might adjust it, but dude, no. Every day, every single day is a new memory. I'm a full believer that every day is a new plank or every day is a new thing, and that we can call it the same foundation.
I got the name confused, by the way. It's the ship of Theseus.
No worries.
Not Sisyphus.
Yeah. It's a good. Overall, I would just say, if you're not, a ship still floats, and its job is still to go in the water. That's the foundation of a person. My job is to do this, blah, blah, blah.
So what's the consistency of your person? So if you're changing all the time, what makes you?
Because for the most part, the foundation's still the same. My job is still, as a person, to wake up and breathe and take basic functions. All that stuff is just like a boat. It's always supposed to be in the water. It's always supposed to do this one particular thing. But then you may put a motorboat on it. You may put a motor on it. Like my dad had one of those ones. You hear about people have sailing vessels. They sail all the time, but they still have a motor just in case there's a problem with the sail. It's still basic core function is the same. Now we do change those sometimes, but I would say almost the entire. We're still the same container. I do believe that humans get really reductive. For instance, that boat discussion is so reductive because at some point you're like, it's a boat. It's not a person. That's the difference, right. Is that it at some point you break a human down to where you shouldn't even really be talking about a human versus the boat. You should be talking about their physical heart, because we're getting so contained in one side, and then the other side's a human, which is a vessel for absolute
and
dynamic.
And also what we're seeing
reactions.
There is emergence, meaning it's not clear at which point the whole becomes a human by adding unique cells or whatever. Yeah. But
a boat.
We understand that there is a point in which it makes sense to refer to you as a human. In the same way that it's not clear when, let's say you have some corn grains, and you start stacking them up. At which point does that become a mound of corn grains? Is there a threshold? Not really.
Is that a handheld?
It's an emergence
version. Yeah, is that a pile
exactly
of corn?
So I think that's more of a linguistic trap, as you say, like a cheap trap. But I am curious because I'm kind of a physicalist, I guess you would say. So I don't really believe we have something external or separate from ourselves, our body, that makes us. But it does put the question, what's that staying identity that you feel? Is it just your memory? Because some people lose their memory and they still have some sense of self, don't they? You go to sleep and you relinquish your consciousness for 7 hours, or in your case, 3 hours.
But you are dead, technically, or in a coma.
Yeah, you've lost your sense of who you really are, in a way. Dreams, you're jumping off a building and then you seem to regain it when you wake up. Or do you? Or are you different?
No, you are different. But I also... I love these discussions, but overall, it's just like what we said when somebody says, just remember the good times. At some point, you just get this really, not convoluted, but you get...
Armchair discussion?
Discussion, but then it also turns into these simple philosophies. For example, one of the reasons why I don't watch any YouTube shorts now is because you'll see a person, whether it be Goggins or somebody, which I like, but you'll see them drop one part of a theory. And they'll be like, well, technically, the best way to succeed is to take chances. And you're like, no, it's not. No, it's not. That is absolutely incorrect. By itself, that is incorrect. It needs a ton of other stuff added to it. And that's what I hate is, like you get too deep, and then you get the really shallow one who's like, yeah, the only way to succeed is to work hard. And you're like, or smarter.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, or work hard or smarter. And you're like, or, and then pretty soon now you're on the philosophical part. I love the discussions, but especially I see it, and I've done it myself, and I try not to do it anymore. But, I'd be like, hey, do this or do that. But then at some point you have to say, well, that worked for me. But it doesn't mean it will, yours may be a completely success.
And in a practical sense, the fact is we do feel that sense of identity. So whatever it is, that's just a fact that we have that. And then what are you going to do? Right?
Yeah, what are you going to do? Do your best with what you got.
It's kind of like,
maybe not.
Yeah, it's kind of like the simulation thesis that people push. Yeah, theory. And it's like, it could be, but you still have to go to work tomorrow. So are you going to ditch work because it's a simulation? No, you're going to do the same thing, right? So it doesn't actually change anything operationally.
Free will is not a thing. And I'm like,
you still have to decide what to wear.
So that's
right.
My free will.
Like you still have to decide what to have for breakfast in a way. So operationally, it's still.
Yeah, it's all really cool to say and stuff like that, but especially lately I've noticed it. And I think it's easy to cut into it because you'll see it with games. Why didn't they just do this? And you're like, seriously? When you look at games and all the stuff that goes into making a game, why didn't you just do this? It is not a good indicator of a success. Why didn't you just do this? Why didn't you just have this? This game did it 10 years ago. Why doesn't every game do it? And here's the thing. I would love that because that would mean everybody would just build on the successes. All the right answers would be done and the right development would be done. And we would be playing a Tears of the Kingdom level game for King Kong instead of King Kong. But people are born every day, which means just de facto it's different people, which then means it's a different group who hasn't learned that. Dude, it's nuts. And I just hate that simple. I love the idea of a simple one-liner like it's about how hard you get hit. But the moment Rocky said that in the movie, to bring it all the way back, I loved the one-liner, but I thought, or you could just dodge the punch. Like, Rocky's idea is to use his face as a catcher's mitt. That's his idea. It's always been his idea. And I love that. And he was saying for him, he was talking to his son, who I think he saw in the writing of the story, he saw reflections of himself. So he's like, this is the advice I will give you. But then he also, which no one talks about, states just a bit later, you're your own person and you have to do your own stuff. And so you're like, okay, it worked for the one-liner in a trailer, but if people lived like their lives, by the way, I have a friend who lived his, and I'm not lying about this, Johnny, and it was really embarrassing. He lived his life for a couple years as if it was all a romantic movie. It was very drama-filled. It was like when the girl said something, he'd be like, well, it was like The Grinder, where he'd be like, well, I guess that's that. And turn off and walk around. You're like, dude, that's not how real relationships work. And a lot of life is just the trailers. People just think, or people think it's the trailers. They think that that's the way you need to live your life. It's much more complicated.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. But I think a lot of those powerful sentences that stick with us, they don't have to be accurate because, when you drill down to it, it's not.
And they
probably
are accurate in that. That part might be
I
accurate.
think there's like a powerful essence to it that reframes the way you think about that. So it's like you're changing something about the way you perceive it. You know how when you say, if you have fear of talking in public, well, think about it or reframe it in terms of being excited, because those are proximate, being excited or being nervous. If that works for you, you might actually change the way you view speaking in public just by that simple thing, but it doesn't mean it's true or factual
Right.
in any way. It's just a useful framework.
Also, that is one of the things I used to do, is teach people how to talk in public. And there was never one rule. There was like 500. And you hear people say, pretend they're naked. Doesn't work. I'll just say this. In 500-600 clients, that never worked. It never worked. It doesn't, and people probably heard it, so they've got to you with that advice already. Yeah. They're like, dude, that advice is 10 years ago. I heard that as a child. And so you have all these rules, and usually it's a mixture of 15 or 20 things, and then a lot of it is like humans, we have to do it, muscle memory and, doing something over and over. But it is useful. Also, I don't know about you, sometimes I've got advice that is not useful, but it's useful because I can say, I already tried that. And that is useful, where you're like, for example, if Rocky says, it's about how hard you get hit, and I'm like, no, I got hit. That check mark is over.
We tried that.
We tried that, and I got knocked out. So what do you do next? And that's why some of the best UFC fighters, some of the best boxing or boxers have changed camps. They've been like, okay, at this thing, I'm the best, or I'm the best I can be. Now I need to learn not to get punched in the face 200 times. Yeah. And that's over here. And that's where, and for example, Rocky did it with Apollo teaching him how to box. Burgess Meredith taught him how to use heart to win and was sort of a motivational coach. So there's two types of training that he dealt with. I'll bring it back to that. But yeah, it's all cool stuff. It's just gotta be smart about shit. What else do we got before we wrap up? I used to have talks like this with my friends when I was 16. Sounds nice, but you got to live the real world. True that. Imagine the crowd is naked. Boing. Ravenous says, that shit doesn't work, man. Dude, that stuff, that does not work. Man, that was the worst advice. I remember people come in and be like, I tried to imagine somebody naked and I got horny. I was like, exactly what he just said. Well, yeah, doesn't work. Anybody have any last questions before we wrap it up? This is my first live Wednesday show. This is Friday, just so you know. So I think you mean, is this the first live Friday show? And is it always open to all topics, not just games? I think so. Have we ever stuck to topic? Ever?
Yeah, I think, towards the end we let our hair down. Not that I have any, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in the top, dude, since the first podcast you guys got on, we'd be like, yeah, let's talk about this. Oh, and remember when Zelda was, had like boobs in a mod? And pretty soon we're talking about something completely unrelated. That'll be it for us. I thank everybody for showing up. If you get a chance, check out the Patreon, where you can join Discord, or don't. Check out, follow me on Twitter, what have you. Johnny will be streaming tomorrow. What are you going to stream?
Alan Wake 2. I'm going to do a full playthrough on my channel on Twitch. Johnny Plays Live.
Johnny Plays
Twitch,
live.
2 p.m. UK time.
6
9 a.m. EST, 6 Karak time. PST.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just my time, not Pacific Northwest. Just Karak's time. Yeah, you should check him out. Especially if, not everybody's going to get Alan Wake. Not everybody has issues with, spoilers or whatever. It's like, it's a good game to experience.
Yeah, some people like to see it played instead, because they can kind of do something else. And
sometimes too, from the scares or what have you, because you're going to probably get surprised. I want to know next Friday how the jump scares got you. That we need to make sure that's a topic, because that'll be important. Everybody else, I hope you have an awesome weekend. Enjoy it. Have a good time. Play some games. Pet your dogs. Do whatever. Smoke a cigarette. I don't know. That's bad advice. Don't smoke a cigarette. Okay, I do have a question for you. No, I'm not going to. Yes, I am. Is smoking and vaping the same thing to you? Is that too much of a loaded question? Because,
my perception is that it's pretty similar. Okay. But are you asking me from a health standpoint?
No, I'm asking you from just a brain standpoint.
My perception.
Like a brain. Let's say I showed up and Absy showed up. And Absy's smoking a cigar. Reg shows up. Yeah. Reg has got a cigarette. And I show up and I'm vaping.
Yeah, my perception is pretty similar. Okay. Which is kind of a slightly negative one. Not to ding it. I don't judge. But I certainly don't think it's a good choice. I view it as an unnecessary thing that people do. And I think it stems from, like, I still think that people think it's cool.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Well, I mean,
to vape. It's like it's hip, it's cool. And I get that, but for me, that seems a bit performative.
right. Yeah, CB
So
says
I
something
don't
really
really-
intelligent. And this is my agreement, is that vaping is, he says worse, but vaping is easier to be around. I would agree. Of all the ones,
yeah.
you know, because it's like, have you ever jumped into somebody's car and they've been smoking a cigarette and you're like, are you kidding? In your car? What kind of heathen are you?
My dad used to do that, man.
Oh, did
wow.
he? My mom and dad
Terrible.
would smoke so many cigarettes with the windows rolled up. You would be like in the back seat, you know, and smoke would beat your eyes. You'd be like, please let me out of this thing. All right, everybody. I hope you have an awesome week. Peace out.